from, and what you're excited about this evening.
Yeah, and as we are getting started, as people are joining in, we've got people monitoring
what you're excited about this evening.
Sorry, I had to pause the live stream. The live stream is also up. But so for the chat, we do have people monitoring it. For those who were here on the last call, there definitely was some bad actors who jumped in and tried to steal our joy and say racist slurs and so many things. So we're going to watch that, hopefully try and get them booted if anybody joins. But the chat should be on here shortly, and then you can respond within there. And Naveed, I am hearing that the chat is not.
It's up now.
It is up now. Perfect.
All right.
Take it away.
Right. Welcome, everybody. I think it looks like we have a really good crew getting in here right now. Welcome, welcome. We should have played some music or something. Hey, everybody. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump in and get started.
Naveed, real quick, it's saying everyone's saying chat's still disabled, even though one person was able to get through.
Oh, okay. Attendees can chat with everyone or hosts and panelists.
Everyone.
All right.
Yeah, should be able to go
for now.
Done.
Open Pandora's box.
Yep.
Okay, I've seen people come in. There we go. There we go. All right. And then throwing you know, where you're from, where you're at, and branch of service, or if you're military family, service of your family member. We kind of see what we got going on.
Are we gonna do another poll?
Yeah,
we got some polls. We got some polls. Don't you worry about that.
All right. Looks like we got a pretty good crew. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is, and welcome to our second ever Veterans for Harris Zoom call. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm an Army veteran based here in Washington, D.C. Oh, somebody's standing on business. That's great. Glad to hear it. So
Fred was.
I'm also very excited that we're co-sponsoring the event with Veterans for Responsible Leadership. They're a great team, and you'll be hearing from Dan, Mike, and Ken later on the call. So the first things first, why are we all here tonight? I think we're all here because we believe in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and we know that they are committed to building a future that honors our service, protects our freedoms, and ensures our voices are heard. This is about more than just politics. It's about the kind of country we want to live in, one where everyone has a fair shot, where democracy is protected, where we take care of each other, including taking care of those who have served. But we're also here because we know it's time to take action. As veterans, we've never been spectators, right? We've never been the ones who are sitting on the sidelines. And tonight, we're not just here to listen, we're here to do something, in the words of Michelle Obama. Because when veterans like us get involved, we can be force multipliers. This is still a very close race. Don't believe the hype, don't believe the polls. Feel hope, but don't feel complacency, right? I think we all remember from the military, complacency kills, right? And every action we take, every conversation we have, every call, every video can make a difference. So let's commit to doing something tonight and every single day and night until Election Day. We have some amazing speakers for you tonight. Representative Cheryl, Houlihan, Moulton, DeLuzio, and possibly another one special guest, as well as the former Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus, the former Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, John Estrada, and an amazing lineup of veteran organizers, influencers, and leaders from all across the space. So before we dive in, just a couple of housekeeping notes. We're keeping the chat open for everyone to share their thoughts, but please remember this is a space for constructive discussion. We ask that you avoid self-promotion or posting unrelated content in the chat. We have a fantastic team of organizers that are here tonight that will try to answer questions as they come up, and we will work as fast as possible to kick out any weirdo trolls that might be infiltrating as we speak. Finally, and most importantly, if you haven't already, please make sure that you signed up for Veterans for Harris for Common Defense. This is the best way to stay connected with us and make sure you're up to date with all the actions we're taking to win this election. So thank you all for being here and for your commitment to this cause. Let's make tonight count. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the night, Rory Brosius, who is the Senior Director for Veterans and Military Families for the Harris campaign. Rory.
Thanks so much, Naveed, and thanks to all of our friends at Common Defense and Veterans for Responsible Leadership for bringing together this amazing grassroots call and lineup of speakers tonight to help us really run towards the finish line for the next 71 days. I'm here just to share a couple of updates and announcements from the campaign. As Naveed shared, I'm Rory Brosius. I serve as the Senior Advisor for Veterans and Military Families on the Harris-Walz campaign. I was a Marine Corps active duty spouse for about 15 years, and I spent 2 years serving our veteran service members, families, caregivers, and survivors, first as a civil servant for the Marine Corps and the Army, but later on in the Obama and Biden administration. But if you roll the film back a little bit, I was raised the baby of 5 girls in an Irish Catholic family in Joliet, Illinois. My dad was a Teamster, and my mom stayed home for most of my childhood. And I moved around a little bit as a kid, but I was lucky enough to grow up in the shadow of my sisters, several of whom went on to serve our country in uniform. So being in Chicago this last week really reminded me of my roots and why I care so deeply about this nation and our election. The American people saw last week Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are the fighters that we need to lead our country forward. And this election is really a choice, y'all. It's 2 very different visions for the future. We have a Harris-Walz ticket that's fighting for a new way forward that strengthens our democracy, protects our reproductive freedoms, and ensures that every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead. Donald Trump is a convicted criminal, you guys. We know this. He is running on an extreme and dangerous Project 2025 agenda that rolls back our rights and freedoms. It hurts our middle class, and it threatens our democracy. And the reason that one hurts so much is because that's the democracy that you all and your families have fought so hard to protect. So in the next 71 days, we need all of you to buckle down and get involved. And whether that means you are phone banking, canvassing, donating, or helping to ensure that our neighbors, friends, and families are registered to vote, every step you take is critical. And I was lucky enough to work for Michelle Obama. So those somethings, they matter, you guys. So like, do something. We need you to do something. I am also really excited to share a little bit of an announcement from the campaign that tomorrow we are bringing on board a director for our Veterans and Military Families Coalition, and that is Libby Jameson. We're so excited about this. Libby is on her way to Wilmington right now, so she can't be with us tonight, but I do want to share a little bit about her with this team on the phone tonight. Libby's a military brat, and as much as it pains me to say it, I'm going to say it because she wants me to. Go Navy. And so she grew up in a Navy family and then watched her 2 brothers serve in the Marines at the height of the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, and she spent 20 years as a military spouse. She has over a decade of advocacy on behalf of our community, and she worked at the VA, she has worked on the Hill, and she has worked at the White House, and she is one of the most amazing human beings I have ever had the privilege of working with, and I'm so excited to have her on board with our campaign team. She is really excited for the next 71 days, you guys, and she is here to make sure that we protect the changes and progress that this administration has made for our community, and to make sure that we elect these leaders who are going to continue to implement our positive changes on our behalf. And so at a closing, I'd like to say at the DNC last week, I was really excited to be at a service project that some of our incredible leaders at the DNC Veterans and Military Family Council hosted. And we had a speaker who said that we all need to be tenors. And that is I'd never heard it before, but an individual who reaches out to 10 people in their networks to ensure that they're ready to get out the vote. And so as we look forward to the next 71 days, I know that everyone on this call is ready to be a tenor, but you should be ready for Libby and I to ask you to be tenors. So we are super excited for the next 71 days, and it is time to get to work, y'all. Jose, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rory. And super excited about that new hire for the campaign. Can't wait to meet Libby and work with them to get across the finish line here. So yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm Jose Vasquez. I'm the executive director here at Common Defense. I'm a U.S. Army vet, and I'm proud to be here with all these amazing veterans representing a diverse coalition of organizations, all united on the front lines to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and finally put a stake in the heart of Trump's MAGA movement. I just want to tell you a little bit about Common Defense. So we're building the largest grassroots army of veterans fighting for progress that this nation has ever seen. We are veterans who have sworn an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, and we're not afraid to stand up against those who threaten our democracy. We're a community of fighters, people who know what it means to serve, who know what it means to sacrifice, and who are committed to building a better, fairer, and more just America. Together, we're on a mission to build the largest grassroots army of veterans this nation has ever seen. And one of our primary objectives since we started this organization has been to defeat Donald Trump. I think it's worth reminding ourselves who Donald Trump is and why he must unite behind, why we must unite behind the Harris-Walz ticket to defeat him. So Trump's a man who called our disabled veterans suckers and losers. I'm a disabled vet myself. Many of the folks at Common Defense on staff and in the membership are also disabled vets. I'm sure many of you that are tuning in today are as well. I'm not a sucker or a loser, and neither was my father, who's a Vietnam vet, who knew what it meant to put everything on the line for this country. I know he didn't serve only to have his sacrifices belittled by a man who can't comprehend the meaning of serving something bigger than yourself. If we give Trump another shot at being commander-in-chief, we know what comes next. Trump will deploy the U.S. military against our own people to silence protesters, police American streets, and hunt down immigrants. This is a direct attack on the constitutional principle that our military exists to defend American democracy, not be wielded as a tool to undermine it. And we're not fooled by Trump's posturing that he's anti-war. While he was president, Trump did nothing but escalate conflicts and put more American lives at risk. He abandoned our allies, undermined our security, and left us weaker on the world stage. We need real leaders, leaders who understand the cost of war and the value of peace. That's why we need Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the White House. They know we can't afford more forever wars. They know we need diplomacy and real leadership to build a safer, more just world. And while there are areas in their foreign policy that we want to see more, including making sure the voices of Palestinians and other war-impacted communities are heard. They're leaders who listen, who we can push to do better. This election isn't about who's in the White House. It's about the future of our democracy, our place in the world, and the kind of country we want to be. We have a choice: stand up for democracy, or let it be torn apart by wannabe dictator. So I'm coming to you, my fellow veterans. This is our fight. We know what's at stake, and we know what we must do. Get involved, use your voice, and let's make sure we never have to face another Trump presidency. Sign up with the Vets for Harris. Join us in this fight. And I would also add, donate. And let's show them what it means to have veterans on the front lines of defending democracy. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, a former Navy helicopter pilot, Representative Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey.
Hi, it's so great to be here. So exciting. And yes, like everyone else on the chat, I love the t-shirt. I have to go get one. It is wonderful to be here. I'm gonna start off by sort of level setting what we're fighting and what we're up against, because I think that'll get us all in the right spirit. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the opportunity we have here to elect the Harris-Walz team, and the opportunity we have for our country and certainly for our veterans. So to start with what we're fighting against, I was in office when Trump was the president. I saw firsthand how he undermined real war heroes like John McCain, Gold Star families, wouldn't get out of the car because it was raining out to honor World War I fallen heroes, didn't want to stand with disabled vets because according to him, no one wanted to see that. Was, as we heard, calling veterans, those who served, those who actually created the conditions for the life he wanted to lead, called all of us suckers and losers. And then when it was his time to fight, to go to the Vietnam War, used his dad's doctor to get him off on some spurious bone spurs. So this is the type of person I think who should never be a commander-in-chief. What's even more dangerous than the sort of derogatory comments or denigrating veterans, look, we're tougher than that, we're fine. But what's more dangerous is the fact that he has tried to use the military to create his own private militia. And according to the 2025 plan, the Project 2025 plan would override the Insurrection Act, would try to use our military, the United States military, as a domestic militia, which is contrary to the law, quite frankly, and what we fight for abroad. So it's an incredibly dangerous thing, but not only do we have a fantastic team in Harris and Walz to stand against all of that, but actually to continue to build and create the alliances across the world for the future we want to see for ourselves, for our military, for our veterans, and certainly for our families. So we have someone in Kamala Harris who I have personally seen at the Munich Security Conference, the most preeminent, the most important defense conference in the world. I have seen her stand up for American values, not just lead the community of nations like NATO and our allies across the world, but also stand firm against our adversaries like Russia and China. I heard her again when I had the real honor of going to the Democratic National Convention to stand strong in our support for democracy, our support for Ukraine, our support to make sure not only we're supporting Israel, but that we are not creating a famine in Gaza and that that's not how we fight. So we are following a leader who shares our values. And then we have our vice presidential nominee in Governor Harris, and Governor Walz, who has served himself for 24 years. Now, a lot of people across the country haven't served, about 99% of the country. But on this call, we know that a life of service is often 20 years. So he did the extra mile, the 24 years. We also know, those of us on this call who are officers, we know the first thing you do when you're an ensign, when things get rough, is call for your chief, right? So he is the most senior enlisted person to ever serve in the House of Representatives. And when he continued his service, even after his military service, even after being a teacher, which is of course service to our country, he went on to serve again in the House of Representatives and got on the important Veterans Affairs Committee because he specifically wanted to keep taking care of veterans. So this is a ticket we can all be proud of. This is a ticket that is going to show leadership. I think we'll all know right now what our mission is, and our mission is to get the two of them across the finish line. We're going to all do something, as Michelle Obama said, to make sure that Kamala Harris is our next commander-in-chief. She is somebody who I have seen on the world stage, somebody we can be proud of, and I can tell you our allies across the world are hoping very much that we have a commander-in-chief like Harris, and not like Donald Trump, who has shown favor to dictators and autocrats across the world. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to another great veteran member of the House of Representatives who I work with all the time on the House Armed Services Committee, who I was just with at the Dem Convention. We just had the honor of standing on the stage together and meeting Pink backstage. So really exciting. But I'm going to turn it over right now to a fantastic veteran of the House and the Air Force, Chrissy Houlihan.
Thank you, Mikey. And hi, everybody. It's a pleasure and privilege to be with you all. Just making sure that you can hear me okay. Some thumbs up. Excellent.
I can hear you.
Some thumbs up. Excellent. My name is Chrissy Houlihan. I serve just outside of the city of Philadelphia. I joined similar to Mikey about 6 years ago, nearly during the tail end of the Trump administration, and also saw firsthand and was motivated by the behavior of then President Donald Trump and how he sees service members and veterans and their families and continues to clearly see them in such terribly unflattering and really terrible light. And so I am literally here talking to you because I didn't recognize our country when we first elected President Trump And that only was affirmed and confirmed over the 4 years that he was our commander-in-chief. Many of the things that Mikey went over are similar to my experience in terms of how he sees people who have fought for us and served for us, how he maligns and disparages those of us who've made that choice, and how uncommon it is, frankly, to be of service in this way. As Mikey indicated, less than 1% of all of us in this country actually do put on the uniform. And the idea that he has found ways to undermine and call into question the patriotism of many of us who've served is truly just nauseating. I have served in the Air Force. I was on an ROTC scholarship and actually was an engineer in the Air Force in the late 80s and early 90s. And my job was command and control and defense, nuclear defense, ballistic defense missile command and control planning. And unfortunately, 30-something years later, we are right back in what would be a cold or hot war, depending on what part of the world you're thinking about. But the threat is still very much the same, unfortunately, as China has risen, as of course Russia has returned, as we have threats in the Middle East and in the Indo-Pacific. And so we absolutely need people who honor and hold in the highest regard those who are serving in the military. And we absolutely need a commander-in-chief who is thinking all of the time about the lives that are on the line everywhere around the world, and also about the importance of diplomacy and the importance of humanitarian efforts as well. So I am an Air Force veteran, but I come from a family of service, primarily in the Navy. My dad and my grandfather actually met in my grandfather's squadron. My dad married the skipper's daughter, my mother. My dad and mom have now been married for more than 60 years. And so I was born on a naval base, Naval Air Station, Patuxent River, Maryland. And so my service has been long. And my family's service as well. My grandfather and father, as I mentioned, Navy, my brother, Army. Many of my family members are in the Navy to this moment. People who have been SEALs and submariners, people who've been naval nurses. And so this is serious and it's personal to me. And I find it really, really worrisome that we're in a place in the world right now where we even have the possibility of having former President Trump return to the office, that he did such a poor job of representing our nation and helping the world. Mikey did a really good job of outlining why Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are such a powerful, dynamic duo in this particular case. People who truly honor those of us who are serving or have served. And also importantly to know that not only when we elect them, both of them, at the top of the ticket, that behind them will be people like me, like Mikey, and like the next person that I'm going to introduce you to as well, who have been working for the last years and years to try to make sure that when we are not only in the White House, when Harris and Walz are in the White House, and also when we have the majority in the Senate and hopefully the House as well, the things that we're going to be able to continue to do for our men and women in uniform and those who have already served just will be exponentially higher. I was able to serve as the ranking member for something called the Quality of Life working group in the Armed Services Subcommittee. And what that all was a year-long effort to try to enhance and improve the quality of life of those who have served and are serving. And so things like household conditions, things like making sure that you have the transfer of abilities and licensing with spouses, things like making sure that our kids, I was one of them, have the opportunity for an amazing education as they move around the country and the world, making sure that we have good health care for men and women in uniform and fair pay. In fact, we actually were able to pass a piece of legislation that would ensure a 15% pay raise for E1 through E4. So these are all the kinds of things that when we will be in the majority, those kinds of things will be at the top of our minds. I'm hopeful that I and other people will be able to continue our services on the Armed Services Committee. I helped to found a Women and Service Women and Women Veterans Caucus to focus just on women in the services as well. And I hope to be able to continue that work as well. So bottom line is we have work to do. We are the underdogs, and we of all people, those of us in uniform and those who have served, understand the mission The mission is to make sure that in fewer than 75 days, I believe at this point in time, that former President Trump is not in the White House again, and that rather Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are, and that we have the opportunity to continue to lead the world with the light that is the United States of America. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. Please make sure that you do participate as much as you are able in any form that you are to make sure that that happens. It is now my privilege to be able to introduce Seth Moulton. Seth Moulton, it's okay that he was a Marine and not in the Air Force or the Navy, but he is an amazing human too. In fact, he actually was one of my mentors as I was running for office, having never run before. He and his group of friends were able to support me and so many others in our ability to make sure that we were able to succeed and win. Thank you. And with that, I turn it over to Seth Moulton, a colleague and dear friend of mine.
Well, Chrissy, thank you so much. And the Congress is so much better because you and Mikey and so many other veteran leaders, many of whom were in the class of 2018, have come to Congress, are leading, are winning, in many cases in some of the toughest districts across the country. Yours was a tough district. You kind of made it easier, but it was a really tough district when you ran and for the first time and won that race. And it just shows that veterans can win. And that's important. That's one of the first points I want to make tonight. I really want to just make 2 points. And the first is that veterans are great at winning, and we should use our argument, our patriotism, our service, and the service exemplified by the Harris-Walz ticket to make sure that we win in November. In Chrissy Houlihan's 2018 class, we had a lot of seats to flip to take back the House. This is when Donald Trump controlled the White House, the Senate, and the House. And we all knew that forming a backstop on democracy would be the House of Representatives. So we had to take back the House. And at the end of the day, my organization, Serve America, supported true leaders like Chrissy and Mikey running in key districts all across the country. And those leaders made up more than 50% of the seats Democrats flipped all across the nation to take back the House. And the lesson from that is that Americans love service veterans. Americans appreciate service. And service veterans like Mikey and Chrissy know how to run. They know how to win. They know how to fight like hell. And that's what we all have to do between now and November. So veterans aren't just great for the country and great for the party. We know how to win. And we've got to carry that energy, that enthusiasm, and frankly, that leadership and know-how into the hard work that's going to be required on the ground to make sure that Harris and Walz win in November. The second point I want to make is that we truly have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reclaim patriotism for the Democratic Party. Now, let's just be honest about the history. Republicans took advantage of the Vietnam divide many years ago, and because it was Republicans who were serving, at least that's the line, and Democrats, they said, who were draft dodging, they have for years claimed patriotism, claimed the flag to their side. Well, look at what we have now. The former commander-in-chief is one of the nation's chief draft dodgers. He's a draft dodger. Don't ever let anyone forget that. He denigrates veterans all day long, even American heroes like John McCain in his own party. We know what he's called veterans of World War II, suckers, losers if they actually got killed, suckers for signing up. We know that Trump disparages veterans even on his own staff. There's a story of him walking through Arlington Cemetery with Marine General John Kelly, his chief of staff, and asking General Kelly, I just don't get it. What was in it for them? This is John Kelly was walking amongst graves that included his son's grave, Lieutenant Robert Kelly, Marine killed in action in Afghanistan. So this is truly a once-in-a-generation opportunity to say that ticket, that Republican ticket, is a bunch of draft dodgers who denigrate veterans. And just to be clear, it's not just about Donald Trump, because J.D. Vance, someone whose service we should be celebrating as a Marine, has just taken a page out of Donald Trump's playbook and is denigrating veterans himself. So up and down the ticket, Donald Trump is having an influence on this election when it comes to his attitude towards veterans, when it comes to his attitude towards service, when it comes to his attitude towards patriotism. And so you have people who should be upholding Marine values like J.D. Vance, people who should be celebrating and elevating veterans across the country like the 50 Republicans who signed a despicable letter recently attacking Tim Walz for his distinguished 24 years of service. They're all following in the footsteps of a draft dodger. So there is a clear choice on this ballot between Democrats who uphold the Constitution, who fight for the flag, and Republicans following the lead of Donald Trump, who denigrate veterans and tried to tear down the flag from the Capitol to replace it with the flag of himself. That's what's at stake in this election too. So as important as it is to win in November, if we do this right, if we remind Americans which party actually carries the flag, which party is truly the party of American patriotism, then we're going to carry the victory in November into victories long into the future. That's our opportunity between now and the election, and it's dependent on veterans like us to make it happen. So thank you so much for having us on here. Chrissy, Mikey, thank you so much for your incredible service to our country, both in and out of uniform. I'm proud to serve with you, and I'm proud to be with all of you on this call tonight.
Thanks so much, Seth. Really appreciate you all being here tonight. This has been a really fantastic evening. However, I do feel like as an Army guy, I gotta ask a question of the audience. What is the best branch? So let's have you vote on this poll real quick. And I know my Army people in the audience are gonna bring us to the top, because really, at the end of the day, the Army is the best branch. We're the ones that really do all the work around here.
Hey, we're not gonna be JD
I'm
Vance
torn.
here.
I'm torn.
You know, it was an Army lieutenant colonel who convinced me to join the Marines. So I just asked those Army vets, and the Army's much bigger. So when it comes to polls, this is a smart thing to do, because just statistically, there are probably more Army vets on the call here. But I just asked for integrity in this moment.
That's right. Well, we should try to
Also,
find a way to
panelists can vote.
make this poll even, but yeah. Looks like we have a couple of Space Force folks here. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. And a couple of
Hey, I tell you what, I'm now the senior Democrat in the House in charge of space and nuclear, because I just think it's so important. So I got to tell you, I have a lot of respect for the Space Force. I said on one of the late night shows once that Donald Trump talks so much about the Space Force. We all know he's a draft dodger, but maybe if he knew he could be a space cadet, he would have signed up.
That's right.
But the Space Force is actually doing really important stuff, and so we want that service to expand and continue.
Absolutely, nothing but respect for our guardian brethren. And it looks like from the poll results, the Army has won. Fantastic, as we should, by numbers. I don't know, by proportionality. Maybe we could do the math on that later. But thanks so much, Seth, and to all of our members of Congress for joining us tonight so far. We have a couple more folks who will be here later. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to my friend and colleague, Joanna Sweat, also a Marine. Let's see if I can bring you up, JoJo. There you go.
Thanks.
Right.
Everybody knows the Marine Corps is the best branch, and I'll just leave it at that. Hello, Vets for Harris. I'm JoJo Sweat, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and I'm also the organizing director of Common Defense. I'm super fired up to be here with you all tonight, because we have got a serious fight on our hands, and we need every single one of you to lace up those boots again and get involved. Let me start by talking for a minute about one of the reasons why I'm in this fight, which is reproductive rights. We're facing an all-out assault from Trump's Supreme Court and extremist MAGA movement trying to roll back our freedoms. Here in Arizona, our own Supreme Court tried to roll our rights back to 1864, before Arizona was even a state and before women had the right to vote. Let me tell you, as an Iraq War veteran, I am done with Republicans telling me what I can and cannot do with my body, the same body that I volunteered to put on the line for this country. Here in Arizona, our veterans are rallying to elect Harris-Walz, elect Ruben Gallego, and pass Prop 139 to protect our reproductive freedoms. Next, let's talk about the power we hold as veterans. In 2020, a 10-point shift among veterans away from Trump was crucial to Biden's win. Right now, many veterans and military voters are among those still undecided. This is a jump ball moment, and we can take this game into overtime. When veterans speak, people listen. We are some of the most trusted voices in America, and our support gives the Harris-Walz a powerful edge. That's been proven with studies. Candidates who have support from veterans and the military gain a major electoral advantage, especially among independent voters. But this only works if the veteran support is visible. So it's not enough to just be on this call with us. Your neighbors and friends and family and social media followers, they all need to know that you are a Vets for Harris. And not just that you're a veteran who happens to support Harris. They need to know that you support Harris because you are a veteran. To help get you visible, we put together a toolkit filled with resources to proudly show your support for the Harris-Walz campaign and to connect with other fellow veterans to fight for our shared values. So here's what I need everyone to do tonight. Make sure you sign the Vets for Harris form, and my organizers will be dropping the links in the chat. Join our Facebook group to coordinate and connect with each other. If you are in one of the battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, or Texas, we have state calls that are already happening there. Please join them. And if you're in another state and want to start holding these calls, we'll have a form for you to fill out too. Thank you all for being here and for your commitment to making a difference. Together, we are a force to be reckoned with. Now let's get to work. Our next speaker is a West Point grad and Army veteran, currently serves as the chair of the DNC's Veteran and Military Families Caucus, Tehran Sims.
Thanks, JoJo. And you know, the beauty of being on a call like this is that everyone's going to say whatever I would have planned to have said. So I'm not going to say anything that anyone else is going to say. Though Seth did motivate me on one little thing. So for those who may not recall, I know Fred would know because we're both grads. Donald Trump went to high school at New York Military Academy. And during his presidential campaign, the school had gone on the tail end of their financial problems and actually shut the door towards the end of the campaign. And I remember leading up to that point where I'm thinking to myself, well, because none of us truly knew how dastardly this guy was actually going to be. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this would be a great time for him to step up and save his school, right? Whether he wrote a check or led in the fundraising efforts. And he didn't. He just let the school shutter its doors. And that to me was the first moment I knew how fake Donald Trump really is. Not was, but is. That being said, as JoJo stated, I am the chair or co-chair of the DNC Veterans Military Families Council. Because my co-chair, Sue Hoppin, who went to the convention with me, is so inspired from her experience, I am not going to take any thunder away from her. But what I will say is that it's great that all you all are on this call, especially for those who aren't yet involved in the campaign yet, because whether it's myself or Rory or Sue or the team at Common Defense, if you get in touch with us, we can get you immediately plugged in to the campaign activities. One of the beauties of those of us who believe in this work, I shared the link with a buddy yesterday, and he hit me up and was like, "Hey man, sorry, I can't get on the call because I'll be knocking on doors in Pennsylvania." And I was like, "That's great, but this call's virtual." So he's like, "Okay, I'll get on the call while I'm driving home." We need to work. Period. We needed to work when Joe was still the candidate. We needed to work when the reset was going on with Kamala as our running up to become our nominee. And now that she is officially the nominee, we need to work even harder. We can't afford to lose this race. You all know the consequences if we do not win. And so in that, I believe I am introducing my co-chair, Sue Hoppin, who is one of the leaders in the military spouse employment entrepreneurial space. She writes policy. She ensures that members of Congress do what she says. These are facts, not fiction. And she's a phenomenal person and an Air Force spouse. Take it away.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you. As Tyrone mentioned, we just came back from the convention and the entire week was full of so many memorable moments. I think a lot of the panelists here agree with me because we were all there together. But one that really stood out for me was when Leon Panetta, who previously served as both the Secretary of Defense and the Director of the CIA, walked on stage and spoke about giving the order for the bin Laden raid, because nobody attacks our country and gets away with it. I thought that was incredibly powerful, because then he went on to speak about the experiences of both Vice President Harris and Governor Walz, and what makes them the best candidates to be president and vice president, saying that to defend our country against tyrants and terrorists, we need Kamala Harris behind the resolute desk. She understands what our military is for. The role of our military is to defend us from foreign enemies. It's not to threaten Americans, and it sure as hell isn't to put immigrants in camps. He talked about the differences between Donald Trump, who tells tyrants such as Putin that they can do whatever they want, and Kamala Harris, who says, the hell you can, not on my watch. We see the difference between a candidate that cozies up to dictators and considers our fallen service members suckers and losers, and one who values the service of our veterans and will keep America's military the strongest in the world. Later on in the evening, I think Mikey and Chrissy and Seth all mentioned it. All the Democratic veterans currently serving in Congress came out on stage, and it was a powerful show of force, because I think Americans know Democrats as the party of compassion, of empathy, of diversity and inclusivity. But what they're less familiar with is Democrats as those who serve, Democrats who are strong on national security as well as foreign policy. So I want to foot stomp what Seth Moulton said. The other party may be quick to wave the flag and lead with the patriotic songs and all the other tropes that tug at the heartstrings, but not any one party owns the American flag or patriotism. It belongs to all of us. As a spouse of a retired airman and as a military family advocate, I appreciated the reminder, as well as the sea of American flags waving in the arena and the chants of USA, USA, USA. I mean, the momentum is definitely with us, but we also can't be complacent. You know, coming off the convention, it'd be easy to think, we've got this in the bag. We're so going to win it. But that would be a mistake. We're all being called right now to serve. We need to carry the momentum to the end. We need to organize and do everything we can to protect the America that we want to see after this election. The question is, do we want an America where women have lost the right to choose? An America where voting rights, the rights to free protest, political opposition, free press, and public education are all in jeopardy? Or do we want an America where, where people have the freedom and not be attacked on the basis of the color of their skin, their religion, or sexual orientation? I say no, we can't go back. We won't go back. In Harris-Walz, we have a team that's going to move us all forward. But first, we have to get them to the finish line. I know I'm going to repeat what a bunch of the other speakers have said and what a bunch of the other speakers will also say, but we only have 71 days to Election Day. But that is still plenty of time for each and every one of us to do something. And it doesn't have to be something huge and time-consuming for it to have impact. Whether you only have 5 minutes or you have more time and capacity, there's something for each of us to do. At minimum, this is something for all of us, double check to make sure you and your family members are registered to vote. Even if you are 100% sure you're registered to vote, go ahead and double check to make sure you have not been purged from the list of eligible voters. Every single one of us needs to do that. And don't forget our youngest voters who may be voting in their first election. Watch those deadlines and make sure they get registered to vote on time. And if you're on social media, help us amplify the message by sharing key messages. You can follow any of the speakers and organizations here today, and they're going to put out messages that you can reshare, retweet, whatever, and just help amplify the message. If you have more bandwidth, host an event or attend an event. You can help canvass, make phone calls, or write postcards. I saw a lot of people in the chat were asking, how do you get involved with that? Just leave your email addresses and someone will contact you, or email any of the people that are putting their email addresses in the chat, and they will contact you about getting involved. You can become a poll worker and definitely donate. Every amount matters, and not just to the presidential race. Make sure you donate to the down ballot races, because we have got to take back the House and keep the Senate, so that when President Kamala Harris gets into office, as we know she will, she has a House and a Senate that will support what she wants to do. Even better if you can make it a recurring donation. Remember, every dollar counts. And finally, and most importantly, go vote. Don't worry about what the polls say. Even if they say that our candidate is very comfortably ahead, do not get complacent. Don't forget to vote because it might be raining that day. Go out there. Every vote counts. You have to have a voting plan. Take your friends, take your neighbors with you, fill up your car. This election is going to be decided by the slimmest of margins. So every vote counts, and we need to make sure we all vote. We all know what we're fighting against: darkness, divisiveness, fear, revenge, and retribution. We also know what we're fighting for: freedom, freedom of choice, freedom to love who we want to love, freedom to choose what we do with our own bodies. Let's fight for the America we deserve and do all we can to get Team Harris-Walz to the finish line, because we cannot go back. And I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you, and I'm really thrilled to be throwing it now to my colleague, Mashri Dunbar.
Thanks so much, Sue. And thanks everyone for being on the call today. My name is Mashri Dunbar. I am the COO of Black Veterans Project and a retired Air Force combat veteran. I was also at DNC this past week in Chicago, and the energy was electric. I was already feeling the twinges of hope prior to my arrival, and so were some of my friends. But being there every single day and seeing the tens of thousands of people feeling hope and joy was beyond inspiring. I was asked at one point if I thought we could really do this, and my answer was yes, if we all show up. But showing up isn't quite enough. It's about the work we put in every single day for the next 71 days to ensure that our friends, families, and colleagues understand exactly what's at stake. It's about having frank conversations and asking the tough questions. It's about being honest with what's important to you. And to all the veteran service organizations, what should be important is the benefits we stand to lose if Donald Trump wins. And the ones we don't lose will certainly be harder for those to get who will transition from service in the future. We've had to fight for the expansion of GI benefits and home loan benefits, fight for the expansion of healthcare, fight for the advancement of childcare capabilities on military bases and military spouse support through Small Business Administration, fight to eliminate Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and fight for expansions of reproductive healthcare, just to name a few. Staying quiet when our democracy is at stake and when everything we fought for over the last 100 years to take care of those who took an oath to uphold the Constitution stands to lose is no longer an option. If you were on the last call, you heard that we at Black Veterans Project have endorsed the Harris ticket. In the space of Michelle Obama's charge to do something, I'm challenging all the other veteran service organizations to get on board and show in force that we will not stand for the fall of democracy and subsequent global destabilization. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. This is about right or wrong. Let's continue to be the leaders we've always been. Veterans for Harris are veterans for democracy. It's that simple. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure your friends and family members are registered to vote. Consider donating, even if it's just $5. But to all the veterans and military families, and especially the veteran service organizations, you have three choices: lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. Let's lead. Thank you.
Thanks, Mashri. Really appreciate you and all the great work that everyone did so far. And I feel fired up already from the DNC to now. It seems like there's just been a huge momentum shift, and we want to make sure we keep that going. So on that note, I would love to hear, I think Sue and Mashri and everyone else also mentioned this, like there's lots of different ways that you can get involved to help. So we would love to hear from you about what you want to do to help out with the campaign. So I'm going to launch a poll, ask everybody to take this real quick, and you can pick, I think, more than one thing. So let us know what you're most interested in doing, or what you might do otherwise. There's lots of different options. You can pick phone banking, writing a letter to the editor, which will get published in your local newspaper. You can do social media videos. You can join us for local events. You can volunteer with your local campaign, or you can donate if that's what you're able to do. So there's lots of different options. I'll give you about a minute, about 30 more seconds for folks to weigh in. Would love to hear from as many folks as we can. Everybody on the call, pick what you want to do to get involved. Just showing up to this is a great start. We really appreciate you all for being here tonight. I know it's a Sunday evening. There's lots of different things you could be doing, and I know that this. You taking the time to be here is really important to us, and we really appreciate it. So give you about 10 more seconds to take this poll, and let's see what the results are. Looks like we got lots of excitement, lots of folks who are interested in doing different things. I'm going to stop the poll right here. Sorry if you didn't get a chance to just check that out, but looks like we got a lot of folks who are really interested in joining local events and volunteering for their local campaign, plus a few phone bankers, letter to the editor writers, and social media folks as well. Really appreciate you all. And our organizers are going to throw in the chat different ways for you to get involved in all of those different aspects of the work. Really exciting stuff. So next up is a few of our friends from Veterans for Responsible Leadership. I'm going to kick it over to if they are all here. So I'm going to bring them up here. There's Ken. There's Mike. And there's Dan. So, gentlemen, I'll let you take it from here.
I'll lead off, guys. Such an honor to be on this call with such an incredible collection of panelists and all of you dialing in on a Sunday night. Like a lot of the panelists, I was in Chicago last week. I brought COVID home, as did Fred Wellman, but totally worth it, 100% worth it, because like others who were there have observed, it was not just a reset, but one of the most inspiring experiences in politics that I've ever been through. And the centerpiece of that was the full-throated, thundering patriotism on display every night for a couple reasons. One, it's about damn time. I believe the Democratic Party has always been the party of real patriotism, the kind of patriotism that seeks to hold America accountable and make us live up to our promises, and not the backwards-looking, phony, performative patriotism of Donald Trump and MAGA. But two, there is nothing that terrifies Donald Trump more than Democrats chanting USA and waving American flags. And that is powerful, and it's going to carry us through to the finish line. So embrace that. As veterans, people are looking to us. The American people are looking to us to help articulate that forward-looking version of patriotism that is, in my opinion, genuine patriotism. But the other thing I want to say is that the American people look to us for other things as well. Rory mentioned at the very top of this call that veterans writ large are one of the only groups out there that still enjoy broad public trust. And I want everyone on this call to think about the day after the election, November 6th, and what it's going to take to heal this country. Because that needs to inform how we talk to our brothers and sisters in arms, our family members, my mom who voted for Donald Trump twice. There is going to be a lot of healing required, and veterans here as well are going to be called upon to help articulate how we do that. Every week, as kind of a public service, I go on a super conservative AM radio show with David Bellavia as the token liberal. He's the only surviving Medal of Honor winner from Iraq, and we have a respectful conversation. And I honestly think it's efforts like that that can have a real impact, not just in flipping people over to the Harris-Walz ticket, but in helping heal some of those wounds that Donald Trump and MAGA have ripped open over the last 8 years. It is my incredible honor to introduce the founder of Veterans for Responsible Leadership next, Dan Barkov, who is one of the most inspiring people I know, a Navy SEAL, Team 8, came home and went to Harvard Med School and is now an emergency room physician. Very unimpressive resume. And he started VFRL because he, like many of us, I'd venture to say most of us on this call, saw in Donald Trump someone who was completely unfit to be commander-in-chief, and it was going to take veterans speaking up to counter that. Dan, over to you.
Ken, thanks so much. And for the warm introduction, I wanted to start by, real quick, thanking you guys for being here. It's a Sunday night. My kids have the first day of school tomorrow, so I'm sure I'm not the only one in that boat. But VFRL, Veterans for Responsible Leadership, is an organization that started as a simple little Facebook group back after Trump got elected. And we've grown to a point where we can have an impact on this election, and I think we have a strategy to do so. So people are talking about ways to get involved, and I was heartened to see that poll that Naveed just shared, and 31% of you were interested in doing social media videos. I'm going to keep it a little bit close-lipped tonight because we might have some espionage here, who knows? But I'm going to post after this. I'm going to post in the chat our contact information, and we have a major play that we are doing in mid-September that we need all of you for. So if you want to do something, if you want to hurt Donald Trump's electoral chances, please reach out to us. We need all of you. The point of this movement is think about the ice bucket challenge, if you recall that from maybe 10 years ago. We're going to try to do the same darn thing. If you are especially, if you're a combat guy or gal, Trumpism at its heart is sort of a populist movement, right? And so, if you're an E3, but you did a year in Al Anbar, please reach out. We need you. This is not about generals and admirals. This is about people with real lived experience who can empathize with the crowd, okay? So, Trumpism depends on a few sort of central things, right? They depend on three basic things that they do, all right? That they do pretty well, honestly. So the first thing they do is create confusion, okay? They create confusion and they flood the zone with shit, as Steve Bannon would say. And so you guys are uniquely predisposed to sniff out bullshit, all right? People who have served know what a good leader is. We know what a bad leader is, and we can sniff out the bullshit. The other thing they do is they depend on apathy, right? They depend on us thinking there's nothing we can do. There's no way we can stop this. There's no point in voting. We have to push back on that. You have to get involved. You have to do something. You have to try to get people to vote, okay? I mean, we are the third most respected messengers as veterans. It goes number one, nurses, number two, small business owners, and number three, veterans. Way, way down at the bottom of the list are members of Congress, although we had some great ones here tonight. And the final thing that Trumpism depends on is intimidation, okay? We are not scared. We are not afraid of them. They always talk about their guns. They start tweeting about civil war. Fuck that. We are here. We are United States citizens, and we are not going to go quietly into the night. Okay. So there are things that you can do. There are things that you can do to push back. There are things that you can do to make sure that our kids have the benefit of a democracy. And, it starts with voting for Harris, but I know everyone on this call is amped up to do something more. The final thing I'm going to say, please, in any context you can, support Mikey Sherrill, Seth Moulton, Chrissy Houlihan. I can't even tell you, when Via Farrell had 50 members, Mikey Sherrill was answering my phone calls and trying to help us, okay? Seth Moulton, I email Seth Moulton and he replies in 5 minutes, these are good people. These are good members of Congress who are doing the right thing and are patriots at heart. Thank you. I'll put out our contact info in the chat and thank you for your time. I guess Mike Smith, take it away.
I'll just jump in here real quick. As means of a self-introduction, I run the social media for Veterans for Responsible Leadership, been a member of the organization since about 2018 when I was a little too loud on Facebook and Dan decided he put that to better use. First, want to thank Common Defense. You guys have just been an awesome partner. We had a chance to really work with them closely in North Carolina at a protest of the North Carolina GOP convention, in which Dan and Naveed just walked right in and owned the place. Got a little bit of national media attention associated with that. So really proud to be kind of walking alongside as part of kind of this larger veterans team. One of the things we talk about here at Veterans for Responsible Leadership is that we're a group of veterans, not a veterans group, and that our motivations are towards democracy in this country, not necessarily about serving veteran issues, though we're obviously passionate about that. And so I think that is something that it separates us in Common Defense from some of the veteran service organizations that I think should be speaking up. It's explicitly our charter to go out and speak up, and to encourage those folks to finally move away from that concern. I also want to kind of talk briefly about Ken Harbaugh. He didn't really introduce himself, but if you get a chance, go watch his movie Against All Enemies documentary. All over the place. Got the fortune of being able to join Ken and Dan in New York City last year for a movie premiere at Tribeca, which was super fun. It's a phenomenal documentary. It was something we also watched when we were there in North Carolina. Okay, so one of the things I like to think about here is and about how we fit into the big picture here is that political campaigns rely not only upon being able to make the case for themselves, but about making the case against their opponent. And when they get down into the mud, it makes them look dirty. We are the people that have a very unique position in being able to go directly after Trump and Trumpism. And I think we, in addition to saying the pro-Harris things, we need to be very explicitly anti-Trump. We give the covering fire for the Harris campaign to go out and sell sunshine and rainbows while we go out and make the direct attacks. And everybody on the call knows here that the man is grossly unfit to lead a McDonald's, drive-through, let alone a country. So remember, we are the anti-Trump people in a lot of ways. A couple points for just kind of like how to frame the conversations you have with people. One is don't legitimize any attacks on you. That's how they want to get you down wrestling in the mud. You just need to keep pointing and saying, this is not right. And you know what's not right. So keep the focus on Trump and that he's grossly unfit to lead. Two, Dan talked about there's going to be a social media campaign. Because we are all unique messengers that have like really high trust in the American public, I think everybody here needs to get comfortable with the idea that in the next couple of weeks, when this goes live and you're going to see it, that you're willing to get on camera and to speak 60 seconds. Doesn't take long, probably not even that. We're going to overwhelm them with numbers, and people need to see that we're all standing up for the right thing. And I think everybody here needs to kind of get comfortable with that. And if you haven't done it before, it can feel a little intimidating the first time you do it. I can tell you, following Dan and Ken and Naveed and a lot of other people's leads, the moment you step out there, you actually feel a lot better about yourself. And the negative consequences really just don't come to pass. There's a couple of grumps that you're going to lose, but you didn't really like them anyways, usually. So don't sweat it. And then I also want to say, more about like us being like uniquely positioned to make those attacks is that no one can really ever question your patriotism. And especially if you're a white man and straight, like Ken, Dan, and I are, but not exclusively, then you get to have a little bit of a louder voice in this, and you get to help to peel off the people that might be like, be dismissive of the Harris campaign of being like just a bunch of gay Black people, or I have no idea what their obsessions are. But if you are a veteran at all, you get special privileges to speak on this that people can't really take away. You add in some of the other demographics, and it gets only stronger. So I really encourage everybody, but especially the white guys that are a little older and maybe have a little gray in your beard, get ready to speak up. So there's a thing to think about there. So we get to redefine how masculinity looks in this country to a large extent, away from this absurd caricature that it's become, and kind of a little bit more of like a Tim Walz, which is why a lot of us are here. The last thing I'd say here is the work's going to continue long after the election's over. It's going to get a lot harder if we lose. But this doesn't end in 71 days. It transitions in 71 days. The work of this country continues. How we interact and how we represent ourselves and represent the veteran community and push this country towards where it needs to be doesn't stop. So get yourself, somebody once told me that it's not a marathon, or it's not a sprint, but a marathon, but that the best marathoners run at near sprint speeds. So that's where we're at. We're running at a near sprint speed for the next 71 days, and then we're going to maybe, back off for just a little bit, but you got to keep running. Anyways, really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. I'm thrilled to see hundreds of people from all over this country kind of signing in, and love you all. I'll throw it back to
And Dan and Mike, appreciate your thoughts. At this point, I mean, it's really great to see so many veterans on the call. And, you know, this election is a little bit different for me because I think military spouses of active duty families have always been a little bit reticent in getting involved because, you know, their service members are still serving. So they're always afraid that there's going to be a negative impact. And so for a lot of us, it's been a lot easier having someone like Susie Schwartz be so active in getting Democrats elected because you know, she kind of gives us that top cover and that guidance where, okay, it's okay to get involved. Maybe it's not so scary. And here's a left, you know, here's a left guardrail. Here's a right guardrail. Here's how you do it correctly. So it is my extreme honor to introduce Susie Schwartz. She is a spouse of a former service chief and a military family advocate, and she is a mentor to so many of us. Hi, Susie.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. Unlike everybody, it seems like that spoke so far, I was not at the convention last week, and I actually watched. I watched every day, all night. I can't even believe it. So somebody said they're not going to be sunshine and rainbows, but you know, I might be sunshine and rainbows today. So I'm speaking to you as a proud military spouse, mostly veterans on here, but you know what spouses can do? We can get people to do stuff, not because we can order them to do stuff. We convince them to do things. We needle them, we cajole them, we, you know, whatever. We make them somehow, we convince them to do what it is that we want done. So that's kind of my message to all the spouses out here. Convince other people to do things and do the big things and the little things. I think Michelle Obama said it the best about, you know, do something. And that includes putting something in your yard, putting a sticker. I can't put something in my yard, but I'm going to put a sticker on my car. And I did purchase the, I purchased the Childless Cat Lady t-shirt, and I wear it every day. I'm taking it on my cruise next week. I ordered some t-shirts. I tried to order the camo hat, but apparently it's sold out because apparently they think that the Republicans own camo and they do not. So I'm not ordering it from the campaign, but I have a feeling I can find one on Amazon. So my message to spouses out there is to do whatever it is that you can do. And reach out to your friends. That was a message I felt through the whole week was kindness was something. And, you know, we're not going to convince them by meanness necessarily. I have reached out to my friends in Texas. I've sent them cards, sent them notes because it's hard for them. They put signs up, they get taken. I'm convincing my brother who lives in Deep Red, Texas, to put a sign in his yard. And do that with your network. Reach out. I have a huge spouse network, and I know other spouses have equally large spouse networks, and we can do it. And then I'm just going to close with an example of what you can do. I have a friend lives in Pensacola, Florida, a military spouse, proud Democrat. She bought 7 Harris t-shirts, one for each day of the week. She wears it everywhere she goes in Pensacola. Last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, she wore it in the grocery store. Nobody said anything, they noticed. But about the 3rd aisle, she turned to go down the aisle with her shopping cart. 5 middle-aged women were blocking the aisle. And she thought, oh crap, what do? Do I run? Do I leave the store? Nope. I just carried down my way. She said, and about halfway down, they yelled, "Where did you get that t-shirt?" We thought there was nobody else out there like us. So if she can do it in Pensacola, Florida, we can all do it wherever we live. So military spouses, I'm charging you to do something. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, ma'am. And for anyone who doesn't know Susie, she's right. She can cajole you to do things that she wants you to do. Is what it is sometimes. Thanks, ma'am, for being with us and being part of the fight. So next, I am introducing my friend and colleague, Tim Denning, not sure why Naveed has me introducing Tim, because Tim's a part of this team, just like Common Defense and Veterans for Responsible Leadership and Vote Vets and all these other organizations. But this might be the first call Tim's been on, because he's also a naval reservist. So he's always putting on his little brown uniform, going down to Norfolk and serving our country. So Tim, take it away.
I think it's mainly from because I have a face and a voice for radio. So probably
and hair for TV.
But yeah, I'm honored to be here, and thank you for that great introduction. National Security Leaders for America is a bipartisan organization that's dedicated to defending the future of American democracy from the existential threat posed by Donald Trump and Trumpism. Our unique membership includes now over 800 senior national security leaders, including retired admirals, generals, senior enlisted, professionals from the senior executive and intelligence services, former ambassadors, elected officials, cabinet and service secretaries. NSL4A is a one-of-a-kind political advocacy organization, and we're committed to leveraging our demonstrated credibility of our members to defeat Donald Trump and other Democratic or anti-democratic candidates in the 2024 elections. So we evolved from the National Security Leaders for Biden in 2020, where our members wrote an unprecedented number of op-eds, did a lot of media interviews, speeches over Zoom and other social media influencing campaigns in every battleground state. And we contributed to the 16-point swing in military and veteran support to Joe Biden away from Donald Trump, which equated to 2% of the overall vote swing into Joe Biden. So this voting block matters. In 2024, we're here and dedicated to influencing undecided voters within the veteran, national security, and pro-democracy bloc to support the Harris-Walz ticket. Our research has shown that this key bloc includes 2 million nonpartisan veterans, 1.7 million military family members, and 2.7 million MAGA backlashers. And our national security leaders are among the most trusted messengers to reach those voters. Jojo mentioned it earlier, that those voices matter and they can reach those influenceable voters. So please engage me and our members to be, as Rory said at the onset, a tenor, and get their trusted voices out there to those who need to hear them. And to that end, tonight, I'm honored, and as a naval officer, it's a privilege to introduce one of our most senior and accomplished members. He has served as the ambassador to Saudi Arabia, the governor of Mississippi, and the 75th Secretary of the Navy. Please welcome Secretary Ray Mavis. Sir, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And I just want to underscore what was just said, that about National Security Leaders for America. This group is here to support all the veterans, all the people who are working. So if you want us to engage with one of your organizations, if you want us to send a speaker, we will do it. This is a time when every one of us has to dedicate ourselves. And I just want to underscore how good all these organizations are, but particularly NSL4A. So I'm going to repeat a lot of the things that people have said because they bear repeating, and because you're going to need to have these things at your fingertips when people ask you why. Why are you against Donald Trump? Why are you for Kamala Harris? And I'm going to do it a little bit with a Navy term. You know, when you're at sea and it's your turn, you stand the watch. And so we have two starkly different choices. And here's what's at stake for those who have served, those who value the American military, those who honor our military, our veterans, and our families for what they've done. On the one hand, will we elect Trump, who's shown contempt, who has ridiculed, who has disrespected our military? Not on our watch. Will we vote for someone who called the senior leadership my generals and said he'll replace those senior military leaders with MAGA cronies? Not on our watch. Who wants to use the military for show, just like dictators do. Not on our watch. Who's willing to use the U.S. military against American civilians. Not on our watch. Who belittle the Medal of Honor and those who sacrificed and were awarded it. Not on our watch. Who interfered with military justice in the Gallagher case in the Navy. Not on our watch. Who says he will suspend the Constitution, to whom we all swore an oath to protect and defend. Not on our watch. Who's willing to issue unlawful orders to the military under the nutty immunity decisions to maybe even kill an opponent. An illegal order which would end the U.S. military as an effective fighting force, and by the way, end democracy. Not on our watch. I'm a member of the Vietnam generation. When I finished school, I went to the Navy. Are we going to elect someone who got 5 bogus deferments, who called our military, the people who joined, who raised their hands and said, send me losers and suckers, and asked what's in it for them? Not on our watch. Who cozied up to dictators like Putin, Kim Jong-un? Not on our watch. Who threatened NATO, encouraged Putin to invade allies, tried to extort Zelensky? Not on our watch. Who disparages America? Not on our watch. And someone whose weird VP pick cowardly attacked and lied about his fellow vet, Tim Walz's service record. Not on our watch. Someone with no respect, no understanding for the military, no understanding for sacrifice, except how can it help him and his fantasy about being an American dictator. An unserious person, as Kamala Harris put it. A joke if the results weren't so serious. Not on our watch. But here's who's running against him. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who is Attorney General of California, fought against vets being scammed. So yes, we will. Yes, we will on our watch. Who helped design and pass the PACT Act. Yes, we will on our watch. Who will stand with NATO and Ukraine. Yes, we will on our watch. The way she spoke about our military in her acceptance speech. She said, I will fulfill our sacred obligations to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice. Yes, we will on our watch. I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. Yes, we will on our watch. Has as her vice president Tim Walz, who, as you've heard over and over again, but served 24 years in the National Guard and rose to the rank of Sergeant Major. Now, I'm a former governor, former commander-in-chief of the Mississippi National Guard. I know how hard it is to do that many years and to rise that high. So yes, we will on our watch. We need a commander-in-chief who respects and values and understands and even reveres the U.S. military, who loves America and what it represents. Kamala Harris on our watch. So this is our mission, and we can't fail because there's too much at stake. Freedom, democracy, our future, the future of our military, all on the ballot. And we'll do what we've always done on missions. Work hard. Never, never, ever let up. Do it for freedom. Do it for our children. We've got 2 futures out there. One grim and dark and filled with hate. And the other bright and filled with hope and opportunity and joy. And that's Kamala Harris. As a former elected official, as a former governor who's run statewide 3 different times, there are 2 ways to run campaigns. scared and unopposed. So I won an election by 6 votes a precinct. If you don't think 1 vote matters, I lost an election by 4 votes a precinct. The day I lost, I had a 59% approval rating. I was incredibly popular. I was 17 points ahead in the polls, and they were right. But 100,000 fewer people voted. 700,000 instead of 800,000 because they knew I had it. They knew I had it in the bag. We can't let that happen, and we won't. We will succeed. We will accomplish this mission. It's happening on our watch. For our future, for our military, for our country, we will win. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Secretary. I always love having a fellow Southerner on the call. I don't know why. Oh, Lord, that doesn't look great. We're gonna do another poll quick, and we'll just ignore why my camera is doing whatever it's doing. But we're gonna do another poll. I am Jacob Thomas, Air Force veteran, originally from the great state of Georgia. Now I'm up in Minneapolis, and I am our communications director here at Common Defense. So we're gonna do another poll. This is gonna be a fun one. So let's go ahead and launch it. If Trump were an MRE, which flavor would he be? Let's see what we get. Oh, look at that. Now we got a much better camera too.
Boneless pork chop.
We picked all the bad ones. So we assumed that nobody was a huge fan of the pork chop.
I'm aging myself. I've never had an MRE with that one in it before.
You're not alone.
Fancy ones now.
So you got my favorite. Yeah, nothing creamy should be good in an MRE. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I don't want to know how they make things creamy in an MRE. I think that is the key part there. Just don't want to know. All right, let's go ahead and end that poll. We'll share the results. Cheese spread left out in the sun. Took it away. But that orange flavor hot beverage bag also right up there. Yeah, boneless pork chop not very good either. I think we were talking about it earlier. We pretty sure Chili Mac is unbeaten. That's Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, great Chili Mac MRE right there. That's what we got. None of these garbage MREs. Well, thank y'all so much. We wanted to have a little levity, little moment. We're gonna keep going, and it's my honor to introduce Leo. Let me go ahead and add that spotlight there. So Leo Ariza, Marine veteran, Afghanistan veteran, and then a member of our Latino Veterans Caucus with Common Defense. We've got 2 great caucuses, or 3 great caucuses now. We just launched our Women's Veterans Caucus, but we have our Black Veterans Caucus. The Latino Caucus started just last year as well, ramping up. So super excited to continue to build on those caucuses. But one of our members from the Latino Veterans Caucus and USMC vet, take it away, Leo.
I have to follow the Secretary of the Navy during my entire enlistment. That is not very fun. MRE poll notwithstanding. But hello, everyone. My name is Leo. I'm speaking on behalf of Common Defense's Latino Veterans Caucus. I'm going to try my best. I'm sure we've all heard the word joy plenty in the last week, so I'm going to try to keep that one on a limit. Growing up in Phoenix, I remember always wondering why politicians never seem to care about Arizona. I remember Joe Arpaio having little to no restrictions to terrorize Black and brown communities. I remember meeting Latinos from various nations who came to the US with nothing and worked their asses off to build something for their families. They did things the right way, that term you might hear, the way Trump and his band of rabid supporters purportedly claim they want, only to see The naturalization processes drag on so long that people get deported anyway. And there are hundreds of veterans, Vietnam era, different theaters of combat, or non-combat, doesn't matter. Thousands, hundreds of veterans, if not thousands, that have been deported to countries that they barely know, if they know them at all. On the other side of the coin, during my time in the Marine Corps, I had the chance to see how naturalization can go. I've seen people come to this country from the United Kingdom, France, Korea, and Japan, and they had very little trouble in completing the process, in some cases, less than a year. The bipartisan border package, whatever you may think of it, it was dead on arrival. By all accounts, it was an immigration hardliner's dream. Instead, we're heading into the last days of the election with Trump again going on and on about how Latino immigrants are rapists and murderers. Again, this same old story. Instead of having our asylum and naturalization systems properly funded and staffed, we, the veteran community, the military family community, we understand national security much better than those jokers over in the MAGA movement. We also understand compassion, service, and justice. I'm pretty sure they don't have the faintest clue what any of those really mean. We all know exactly the kind of filth that we're going to start getting, as I think it was Mrs. Obama who said, it's not always going to be the sunshine and rainbows. So it's going to take a lot of courage to not stoop to that level and start fighting mud with mud. Instead, if we make, I liked the term earlier, the tenor commitment. If we commit to this effort with a tenor, I sincerely believe that we cannot fail. They're running a campaign of hate, of fear, of anger, and I know that a lot of you understand this just as much as I do, that hatred and anger are extremely tiring. Almost 10 years of that clown show has been exhausting to witness. I cannot imagine being a part of it. I joined the Marine Corps at 17. Like Governor Westmore, I needed my mom's signature to join. I ended up deploying to Sangin, Afghanistan in 2011, and I came home broken in ways that would have seen me deported if I hadn't been fortunate enough to be born here. I got out in 2011, and I was recalled shortly after, and I came home for good, finally, and I fell into a rut of hopelessness and cynicism. The 2016 election activated me in a way, but I still had a lot of negativity in my heart. And now, for the first time in a very long time, I feel really energized and optimistic about a presidential election. I imagine that this is the same hope and promise that people felt in 2008 with Obama's first run. I was stationed overseas at the time, so I didn't really get to feel that. But election day is November 5th, and it may be a few days before we can take an easy breath. So my goal is to work towards making November 10th a different kind of celebration, not just for Marines, but for everyone that following Sunday. In Kamala Harris, we have a champion of national security and also compassion and justice. And I really want, in case there are any worries about having a woman in charge, I challenge you to find a Latino household where mom is not in charge of the family and grandma is not the matriarch in charge of the whole thing. So that's all. Thank you all for allowing me to speak. Latino Veterans Caucus for Common Defense. If you are of the persuasion, we'd love to have you. I believe I am passing on to the chair of the Black Veterans Caucus and Air Force veteran. Tasha, you don't look like.
Oh no, I'm a Navy veteran.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No worries.
Yes.
I want to apologize now. Right before I jumped on this call, my fire alarm started to chirp, so it's going to look a little stereotypical for the moment right now. So please forgive me and bear with me. Hi, I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. My name is Ms. Tashandra Poulard. I go by Tasha for short, and I am a poet. I'm an actress. I am a photojournalist currently, and I live in the state of Kentucky at the moment. See, there it is. So what I do is I use my poetry to speak my mind and express my feelings. So my speech is going to be a little bit different from those you've already heard speak. Today, I speak on behalf of my fellow veterans, both family and friends, during this auspicious occasion. I speak in parables and poetic lyrics, sharing the cultural aspects of what it means for me, a Black woman, an American, casting my ballot for a fellow sister. Reflecting on the sacrifices of men and women of my lineage who have served in uniform during nearly every military conflict this country has entered. From my grandfather who was left behind in post-World War II France with several other colored soldiers after Allied forces pulled out, to my uncles who fought in Korea and those who served during Desert Storm. Moving on to our Operation Iraqi Freedom, the same as myself, I hail from a long line of proud soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who defended this country in this dimension, moving into the next, who are gearing up full battle rattle to ship off to the next tour of duty at the voting pallets. Service to one's country is something that I don't take for granted, thus I have a lot of respect for those who serve our communities. I was told that the true test of a person's character lies in how they treat the people they don't personally know, the ones they feel they don't need. May it be Black Americans applying for housing in what they assume to be safe and clean environments, only to be slapped in the face with racial discrimination. Or the magic number of 18, representing the feminine beings who have accused the former president of varying inappropriate behavior that range from allegations of sexual harassment to flat-out assault. Either way, when addressing the issues one may face with the shell of a man who lacks moral character and sound judgment, the idea of standing tall, pain-free, of phantom bone spurs, and service to one's community, one's country, always comes to the forefront of my Black psyche. People thought the dream Stacey Abrams had of Black women utilizing the power to vote was nothing more than a short scene in a movie produced by J.J. Abrams. What they didn't understand is that this is real life, with a woman's name on the ballot, bringing her foremother, Shirley Chisholm's fade in the water folding chair to the table of patriarchy. This bothers some people. Why, you may ask? It's too often that we don't see positive representations of women in color in real life. Americans are finally understanding that this isn't reality TV programming brought to us by Viacom. We now understand that what we have here is a failure to communicate the realness of this election to some who've never served in uniform, to some who don't fully understand what's at stake if this Hydra Supreme is reelected into presidency. The pushback for this particular woman is the fact that she's operating in a human capacity of personhood. She is demonstrating on a global scale what women of color are capable of becoming. She is our next president, Kamala Harris. And the Republican Party doesn't have the proper ammunition or the racist gear to fight this battle. She is a deviation from what's been normalized, the televised versions of what they're used to seeing and believing of women of color. Their operating systems can't compute how we went from a womb of a Black woman being a profitable investment for commercialism, for the medical studies of the father of female anatomy, to potentially being the next commander-in-chief. That would mean that in shattering the glass ceilings that Barbara Jordan and Hillary Clinton chipped away at, the world would no longer see women of color, as mahogany figurines in a glass menagerie of welfare queens. Today, America must acknowledge that she has the potential to hold one of the Black jobs that's not just given to those who bask in the rays of mediocrity, understanding that the magnificence that shines from within outwards has illuminated her path to the White House. Today, America must understand that it no longer can simply tolerate the feminine that knows her place and assimilates to blueprints of the American dream that doesn't quite necessarily include the proper schematics that accommodate the isosceles triangles of intersectionality, two sides of equal length that create angles of inclination associated with the struggles of being a woman and a woman of color. With Kamala Harris, we can no longer just reminisce on the good old days when the Black sheroes were in history books, etched in stone that could easily be torched and destroyed by DEI. She is living history. She is making history. She has hopped off the pages of slave narratives. A Kamala Harris presidency would signal to us as Americans that we are actually making it to the dream summit of Martin Luther King's mountaintop. As an authentic poppy flower dancing the very same DM breeze that once swayed the strange fruits, wearing pearls that she dare not cast before swine, matched with HBCU pink petals and green stalks. She has the gall to be seen in a field of many poppies that cannot be cut down. The future Madam President Kamala Harris walks boldly into her truth. She understands that she is enough. Her mere existence is enough. Her presence for little girls of color to be seen and seeing themselves in her is enough, demonstrating how ethnic names, tan skin, rich with melanin, loose coils or tightly curled C4 strands like ribbons stripped by scissors, rolled R's, light-colored scents of marsala, brown-eyed people are enough. The blatant attacks on Kamala Harris has nothing to do with her receipts of outstanding achievements. As a minority woman, she has to remain a grace under fire for the majority of her life. The problem with Kamala is that she stands too tall in the field of poppies. The crabgrass of gender bias, the ragweeds of racial discrimination, the dandelions of intraracial colorism, and the ground ivies of misogyny have all come together. They've had a meeting on how to implement the dark psychology needed to cut her down, but I'm here to tell you it won't work. Her moral character and charisma are seen as an eyesore. They are attempting to relegate her to a garden of submission that is disturbed and evenly distributed to the disadvantaged. But I stand here today as a fellow HBCU grad from Texas Southern University, as a poet, a military veteran, a Black woman, supporting and defending a Divine Nine alum of Black excellence, uplifting her degree in political righteousness to become the next president of the United States of America. I stand with her. The Veterans Black Caucus stands with Kamala Harris.
Great work, Tasha. Thanks so
Am
much.
I allowed to shout and cheer in this?
Yeah. Thanks so much. Tasha's a good friend of mine. She's been a Common Defense member for a long time and has done some amazing work. So thank you. Yes, please continue. The outpouring of support for Tasha is amazing. Thank you all so much. Again, thanks everybody for being with us and sticking with us for this evening. We know that there's a lot of things you could be doing, and we appreciate you all for being here with us tonight. Up next, I want to introduce, go a little bit actually out of order. I know we had Jolly up next, but I think we have Chris Deluzio should be up. He's a former Common Defense member, Navy veteran who has served, hey Chris, and is joining us today from, I think, Pittsburgh, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Chris Deluzio, everybody.
Hey, everybody, and hi, Naveed. Bear with my voice, which is kind of gone at the moment. I apologize, but we'll be strong and firm nonetheless. Good to be with so many fellow veterans and some familiar faces here. I thought I'd just share a little bit of my own perspective on what I've seen. As a guy in Congress, I've been serving now almost 2 years. Who's a veteran, a post 9/11 veteran. I'll tell you about my path to being in office and what I've seen, not just from the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats, but Republicans, and talk about what that contrast looks like and tie it to what we're seeing top of ticket. So, look, I'm around the same age as some of the post 9/11 veterans here. I was a senior in high school when those attacks happened. I went off to the Naval Academy. I served as an officer on active duty about 5 years and change, deployed at sea and on the ground in Iraq. And I take that perspective into my service in Congress. It certainly shapes who I am. And I like to talk about being from where I am from, Western Pennsylvania. And like a lot of places in this country, you know, we for generations have had folks step up to serve in war and in peace. That's just part of our way of life and culture around here. You know, I often make the comment or the observation when I'm in someone's living room, whether knocking doors or whatever in my district, it's a rare house that doesn't have a picture of somebody in uniform, someone somewhere in a family who served. So it's something that I'm very proud of where I'm from. And I think about those values. I think about that service. And I got to tell you, I think about the way Donald Trump has talked about Americans who have served, Americans who died in battle. My goodness. I mean, calling our war dead suckers and losers. This is from a draft dodger whose rich dad got him out of going to the Vietnam War. It incenses me. And look, I could go on and on about how that guy lacks the character to be president. And I think many of us on here know that he does lack it. It's not just that, you know, it's policy disagreements. What we saw in his 4 years in the White House, my fellow burn pit exposed veterans. Did anything happen to take care of us when he had the chance, when he had full control in Congress on top of it? No. And in fact, as many here know who worked to get the PACT Act passed, it was over the objections of Republicans. It took a Vice President Harris and a President Biden to get the PACT Act signed into law. Most consequential piece of legislation for, I think, my generation of veterans and older generation of veterans too. Folks in the Vietnam era who were exposed to some nasty stuff. I've seen in my time in Congress, especially when I was serving on the Veterans Affairs Committee, some of our Republican counterparts, every chance they could get, attack reproductive rights and health care for veterans. I saw them attach riders on the defense bill and spending bills to try to restrict reproductive freedom, all while they tried to privatize the VA on top of it. And look, guys, you may know what's in Project 2025. It will be a brutal, brutal day for veterans if any of that comes to action. I mean, we're talking about seeing care for non-service connected conditions pulled out of the VA. Contemplates, I think, really serious cuts to care and benefits that are earned, that are hard earned. And so, look, it's one thing to say, here's all the bad stuff for the other guys. And believe me, it's bad. It's quite another to also say, hey, look, our nominee, our ticket has really been fighting for veterans. And the PACT Act, I think, is the best evidence I can point to. They were going to cut veterans care. They were proposing massive cuts to VA. And the White House, along with congressional Democrats, held the line, said, absolutely not. Are we going to get this package or compromise done on the backs of veterans? Absolutely not. And so I think that shows moral courage from the president and the vice president. It tells me they understand that honoring the pact this country has with veterans means something. And look, I think we all know that veterans understand what it is to serve and hold the line. And I think we know the threats to our democracy are real. We saw it on January 6th. We continue to see it with Mr. Trump and others continuing to peddle the lie that he didn't lose the 2020 election. I mean, the way he talks about dangling pardons in front of the January 6th insurrectionists and rioters, it's a disgrace. And so I think you all know there's work to be done to defend this democracy of ours, that we are ready to do it. And the way we win and we resolve our differences in this country is at the ballot box. And I think, and I know that my fellow veterans are going to make their voices heard. I'm proud to be one of us, to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to help us protect and honor our service and get it done in Washington. And I think that has to mean sending Governor Walz to the vice presidency and Kamala Harris to the presidency. I'm going to do all I can to make sure that up and down the ballot, we're electing candidates who understand the value of our service and share our values. So it's an honor to be with you guys tonight. Thanks for bearing with me with a lousy voice. Naveed, back to you.
Thanks so much again for being here, Chris. And everything you said is so true. It's so right. Just like what we heard earlier from other folks, this election is about all of us getting involved. So again, appreciate everybody for being here this late on a Sunday evening. But showing up to this is step one, right? There's a bunch of other stuff you can do. We're going to throw some options in the chat for you to get involved. Really looking forward to it and working closely with our friends and allies throughout this big fight that we have. So thank you all. And now I want to bring in a friend of ours, Russell Ellis, that you all might know as the Jolly Good Ginger. Russell, take it away.
Well, I want to first start off by thanking Chris for not making me follow Tasha. So thank you, Chris. Yeah, you guys probably know me as Jolly. I'm your favorite TikTok influencer, Instagram. If I'm not, should be. I'm just kidding. But I was on the last Veterans for Harris call, and I'll be on this one. And I think it's great what Common Defense is doing. We have to take back this idea that all veterans and everybody who served are Republicans. I hate the concept, especially when I look at who's on the Republican ticket. Donald Trump. Just last week, Donald Trump made remarks about the Medal of Honor, which honestly enraged me. He said that, isn't the Presidential Medal of Freedom better? You don't have to die to get it and get shot to get it. I don't have to explain to you guys why that's so disrespectful, and I won't. But it does show that he has zero respect for military awards. If you guys remember, it was 2018-19. He was at a rally, and a veteran came up to him and gave him his Purple Heart. And he made his response to it was so disgusting to me. He said, "I've always wanted to get one of these. This was way better." As a veteran, we know the one award you never want to get is the Purple Heart. But of course, it's a joke to him. We are a joke to him. And I want you to think about the amount of respect that we in the military show to the flag. Remember when we were active duty, and the flag doesn't touch the ground. When you walk past it, you salute. When the colors are posted, we're at attention. We show the utmost respect to the flag. It never dips below any other flag. Remember when Donald Trump came on stage and he hugged the flag and he kissed the flag? Guys, does he think we're stupid? Does he think that we're just young and dumb and we're children? He does think that, by the way. But he thought that veterans would see that and say, "Oh, he loves America." No, that's a disgusting display of pandering. Donald Trump said about John McCain that he liked his war heroes not captured. Anybody who has ever worn the uniform knows how much we respect POW MIA. That mere comment should have been enough for any veteran to never cast their vote to him. On the Howard Stern show, he said that he viewed himself as a brave soldier because he didn't get an STD during the 1980s, which was his personal Vietnam. Listen, when I take all these points independently and I gather them together, I was a human intelligence guy in the Army, by the way. That's what I did. I was an intel guy. And part of intelligence analysis is taking data points, putting them together and drawing conclusions so that we can make sound decisions on the battlefield. When I look at these data points that represent Donald Trump's views on the military, and that's before I even mention his comments about soldiers being suckers for joining or being losers for dying. Before I even mention all that, just the data points alone shows me he has zero respect for the military, for our service, or anything related to us. Okay, this isn't an opinion. This isn't a feeling. This isn't identity or partisan politics. This is simply deductive reasoning. You don't even have to squint to see how Donald Trump feels about veterans. But let me be clear, though. I want to be very clear. I don't actually care if Donald Trump respects us or our service, or if anybody does. A staple of my time in the Army was selfless service. I didn't do it for recognition. I don't think anybody on this call did it for recognition. However, there's two very important points I want to make out of this. Number one, let's quit this asinine idea that Donald Trump cares about our military or our country. Just stop. Ridiculous. It's laughable. There's nothing you can point to that proves it. Spare me the fake patriotism. But number two, when it comes to veteran care, and this is what matters to me, when it comes to VA disability, when it comes to veteran homelessness, when it comes to veteran pay, do not dare try and convince me that the guy who has made a complete mockery of our awards, our service, our captured, and our dead will be the one who will make sure that our benefits are bettered and protected. Spare me. I don't need Donald Trump to respect veterans, but I also don't need the delusional right-wing people to tell me that he cares about our service, because he doesn't. And more than that, I don't need Cadet Bone Spurs as the commander-in-chief of this country ever again. But let me conclude by not talking about that spineless traitor and instead talking about the Harris administration. Vice President Harris was part of the Biden-Harris administration that implemented the PACT Act. As an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran myself, this is something that's near and dear to my heart and the hearts of many of my friends. I have a close friend named Daniel Burgess, and even after the military, him and I worked together. And he used to wake up in the morning, because I lived with him for a while. He used to wake up in the morning and puke blood. And that was directly because of his exposure to burn pits in Iraq. But the VA did not cover him because it did not recognize burn pits. And this was years after his ETS. But the PACT Act protected Daniel and many other veterans just like him, to include myself. And honestly, when the PACT Act was passed, I thought, wow, finally, progress. And I'll tell you who didn't do it. It wasn't Donald Trump. Secondly, I want to talk about, the more I learn about Tim Walz over these last couple of weeks and seeing him and his family last week in the DNC in Chicago. I was at the DNC in Chicago. I was very fortunate to be one of the 200 credentialed creators with press passes at the DNC. I got to meet Tim Walz's family. Just incredible, incredible people. And it's very clear how much that he cares and loves about others. And I could not help but think, like, wow, how amazing it must have been to have him as a command sergeant major in your unit as a young soldier. I think we all know the absolute importance of senior leadership in your command that genuinely cares about you. So I want you to ask yourself, if you've ever worn the uniform, even a day, ask yourself right now who you would rather have in your chain of command. Command Sergeant Major Tim Walz, Cadet Bone Spurs. I won't wait for your answer. It's abundantly clear. And that's the type of leader that I want and that we need in the White House beside our next president, Kamala Harris. Guys, we cannot be lax during this election. We cannot take a knee. We can't put down our rucksacks. We must vote. We must make sure our neighbors vote. We must make sure that our veterans are protected. This means that we must make sure the Harris-Walz ticket dominates this November. Veterans, fellow veterans, I give you one mission. We must make sure that Donald Trump and the party of traitors forever remember the 5th of November. The rally point has been set at the ballot box. I will see you there. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Russ. And our next speaker doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm gonna give a little history for those who are relatively new to this Democratic veteran activist thing. And I'm glad that Secretary Mabus was on, as well as Tim, as part of National Leaders for America, because that organization was birthed from my mentors back during the Obama campaign in 2008 as senior leaders for Obama. And I would technically say sister organization, but more the little brother, little sister organization was the Next Generation Veteran Leaders for Obama, which consisted of folks like myself and Wes Moore, Tammy Duckworth, and a few other people whose names you would probably recognize. And the beauty of this work and the beauty of who we are as leaders is that once we won that election, or after we'd won that election, the work didn't stop. And there's some of us here continued building that work and continued inspiring and motivating others to come in here and do the work and help us get good Democrats elected to office. So when Jacob put in that poll about what's your favorite branch of service, I actually marked the Marine Corps. And it's no disgrace or whatever disrespect to my Army brothers and sisters, but I was raised by a Marine. I love the Marine Corps. My dad served in the Marine Corps. I was born into the Marine Corps, actually, literally. And so I'm actually proud and honored to introduce our next speaker, who I'm proud to call a friend and a mentor. He's the 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Served our country proudly from 1974 to 2007, and also served as U.S. Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago during the Obama administration. I'd like to introduce to you all, well, at least for those who don't know him, John Estrada.
Ron, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you this evening. Thank you for inviting me. My show, you just heard a little about who I am. What you don't know is that I am an immigrant. I came to the United States of America, this great nation, at the age of 14 and grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and went on from there to have a great career in the Marine Corps. And as mentioned, also went back to the country of my birth 40-something years later, the country I left as a 14-year-old to serve as the American ambassador back to the country of my birth. What a great country the United States of America is, that this could happen. I will tell you, under Donald Trump, I'm afraid nothing like that would happen. I would not have had the opportunity to contribute to this great country with 34 years in continued service. I would have been locked up. So I want to thank everyone that's here this evening. We all have a very tough mission. I was at the DNC convention, a lot of electricity, and it feels like we have won this already, but we have not. We have to keep a full court press all the way to November 5th. Vice President Harris, Governor Walz is the only team that could lead our nation. Governor Walz's military career has been attacked by some, and I will not waste too much oxygen on Donald Trump. He did not serve. We all know the bone spurn story. I was disappointed in J.D. Vance, fellow Marine, would come out and attack another fellow veteran, someone that gave 24 years of service to our great nation. And he was looking ahead to the next chapter of his life, and he moved on. While serving as Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, I served from 03 to 07 during the height of the conflict in Iraq. We had general officers retired. We had senior enlisted retired. And they served to have the right to do so, should not be held against them. J.D. Vance served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps, deployed to the war zone for 6 months. He left the Marine Corps during war. He left. So that should not have been an issue. And I was disappointed to see him adopt some of Donald Trump's tactics. Project 2025 for veterans. Some have talked about it already. That's going to be devastating to veterans. Just devastating. It's going to hurt veterans and their families if Donald Trump has his way. Both veterans and their families. Again, reduced compensation makes it harder for them to get compensation for their sacrifices. That's Donald Trump. Cares about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a threat to our national security. And we could add J.D. Vance onto that, which is disappointing because he served. He wore the cloth of our nation. They are a threat to our national security. How so? Politicizing our military, at least try to. And I just hope and pray all our veterans and those folks on active duty today never forget that sacred oath that we all took to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And I have faith our active duty military will do so. But more so, we will not be going there because Donald Trump will not be elected. My part, what concerns me about this election, we have 71 days to go. I am doing my best. I'm here in Trump country, Florida. You see the Trumpers out over the overpass all the time holding the signs up. But I have to share this little tidbit with you. Leaving the convention to come back home, I walked on that airplane, headed to West Palm Beach, Florida. and I had my Harris-Walz. I didn't put it in my luggage. I walked down the aisle of the airplane with it. I'll tell you that, coming back to Florida. But my concerns are young Black male, 30 and below. I am concerned that there are some of them, there is a percentage that worries me that are not listening to Donald Trump, and they are talking about voting for Donald Trump. And that concerns me greatly, so I'm doing everything I can to address that issue with fellow veterans in the West Palm Beach, South Florida area. Again, special emphasis on those individuals. Suckers and losers. That's how he refers to our veterans. It tells me that, again, he has no respect. We know that for the dead, the injured, but it should show everyone that he has no respect for those that's serving on active duty right now. He sees them as future suckers and losers. So that concerns me. I travel throughout the world and visit our military cemeteries of so many of our warriors who died and were buried overseas in World War II. They're not suckers and losers. I know military veterans, the disabilities, they're not suckers and losers. So I am concerned about the loss of a democracy. And this is what I preach to everyone I come in contact with. And I will ask those of you that's on the call right now, you could play a very important part in ensuring that Vice President Harris and Governor Walz win this election. Everyone on this call, some of us are already doing something, we have to do more. Those of you that have not gotten involved yet, I hope this call gets you involved. We need you. We need you all the way through November 5th. And this election could be won. Again, I would not have been able to contribute to national security of the United States of America. And I'm so proud that I got to live in this great country. And we are a nation of immigrants. And Kamala Harris and Governor Walz are best suited to address the border issues. We all know Donald Trump killed the border bill that came by, and we need to amplify that with the American people. I do not think it's been amplified enough. They killed that border bill. So thank you very much for having me. We got a lot of work to do. I'm in the trenches with you. Simple 5.
Thanks very much, sir. Really appreciate you, and really appreciate everyone here for sticking with us this evening. We know we're a little bit over schedule, but there's a few amazing speakers left that I would love for you to hear from. Next up is a Navy veteran, a Mustang, someone who was enlisted and then became an officer, a good friend of mine, Travis Akers from Florida.
Thanks, Naveed. Appreciate it. And also, thanks a lot for scheduling me to follow the ambassador, the 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. So no pressure there. But yes, I'm Travis Akers, retired intelligence officer, and it's both an honor and a privilege to speak with you again to discuss the future of our nation and the critical role of leadership in shaping that future. So I want to talk about 2 leaders who have shown remarkable dedication to supporting the veterans and military's families, community, and that is Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Our journey as veterans and military families is marked by sacrifice, dedication, and a shared commitment to our nation. We have faced challenges, endured hardships, and navigated transitions. It's crucial that our leaders reflect our values and work tirelessly to address our needs. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are 2 such leaders who have demonstrated through commitment, their actions, and accomplishments. Vice President Kamala Harris has been a staunch advocate for veterans throughout her entire career. During her time in the Senate, she played a pivotal role in passing the Veterans Compensation Cost of Living Adjustment Act, which ensures that our disability compensation keeps pace with inflation. She has also been instrumental in expanding mental health services for veterans, addressing the urgent need for better support for those dealing with PTSD, And her work in the Biden administration continues to focus on improving access to healthcare and services, ensuring that veterans receive the respect and care they deserve, including the passage of the historic PACT Act, which fulfilled years of unkept promises. Governor Tim Walz, a retired 24-year veteran himself, understands the unique challenges we face. His leadership in Minnesota has been nothing short of exemplary. Under his guidance, Minnesota has enhanced its support systems for veterans, including increased funding for mental health services and expanded job training program. Walz has also been a champion for veteran-owned businesses, promoting policies that support entrepreneurship and economic opportunities for those who have served. So both Harris and Walz share a vision of a future where veterans and their families receive not just the benefits they've earned, but the respect and support that acknowledges their sacrifices. Their dedication is evident in their accomplishments and their ongoing efforts to improve the lives of those who have served our country. But their work cannot succeed without our active involvement. It's not just enough to simply support these leaders. We must also engage in our communities and contribute to the cause. Volunteering and donating are powerful ways to make a difference. So consider volunteering with the campaign, participating in phone banks and text banks, or even canvassing in your community's neighborhoods. Your time, continued commitment to democracy, and organizing expertise can provide invaluable support to help elect Kamala Harris. In closing, I urge each of you to actively support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, not only through your vote, but through your actions. Together, we can build a future where every veteran and military family receives the care, support, and respect they deserve. Your involvement makes a difference, and your commitment to these leaders is a commitment to a brighter future for us all. When we fight, we win, and I'm ready to leave it all out on the battlefield, and I'm ready for you to join me. Thank you for your service, your support, and your dedication. Let's continue to work together to honor our past and to secure a better future for all who have served by electing Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States of America. Go Navy, beat Army.
You had to close with that, huh? Thanks, Travis.
Every time.
Really appreciate you. Amazing remarks. Thanks so much for being here, and for all of you for sticking with us. Up next, we have another Air Force veteran who is representing Common Defense's Women's Caucus, Vidya Barnett. Vidya.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Vidya Barnett. I am one of the founders of the Vet Space, where we curate joyous experiences for women veterans in the outdoors. I'm currently serving as executive director. I am a disabled Air Force veteran, and my life has been deeply intertwined with the military. I am the daughter of 2 Marine Corps veterans. Vietnam War veteran is my dad. I was born on Quantico Marine Base, and I am also the niece, wife, and sister of veterans, as well as a proud mom of a recent Coast Guard veteran. So this is why I believe that electing Vice President Kamala Harris as president and Governor Tim Walz as vice president is the best choice for not only active duty women, but women veterans and our families. Women veterans make up about 10% of the veteran population. That is a little over 2 million individuals. This is a number that will continue to grow as our current active duty forces are 1 in 5 are women, but there are challenges that we face that are significant. Did you know that nearly 275,000 military families are eligible for food stamps and WIC? That's almost 40% of our current 766,000 military families. But these families are not just data points. It is a harsh reality for many military families, particularly those led by women. I relied on WIC and food stamps when I was a single mother in the Air Force back in the 90s. It is unacceptable that those of us who serve our nation still struggle to feed our families over 30 years later. Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, over 92,000 women service members, about 40%, are stationed in states with restricted access to reproductive health care. This is not just a healthcare issue, it is a military readiness issue. Active duty women's healthcare is essential to maintaining our national defense. The existential threat posed by Donald Trump and Project 2025 cannot be ignored when it comes to women veterans. Project 2025 aims to eliminate Head Start. This alone would have devastating consequences for military families who are often on months-long wait lists for on-base daycare, further pushing them into poverty with rising childcare costs and hardship, which again negatively impacts military readiness. But there's good news. Vice President Kamala Harris went on a nationwide tour to address the U.S. maternal and infant mortality rate, which we have the highest rate of all high-income countries. In 2025, Vice President Harris announced the Biden-Harris administration's blueprint for addressing the maternal health crisis. Tim Walz, as governor, has already demonstrated his commitment to supporting families by signing a universal school meals bill into law, ensuring every child in his state has free breakfast and lunch. And his administration established a nation-leading child tax credit set to cut child poverty in Minnesota by up to 1/3. This is the leadership we need. Leaders who actually care about, listen to, and then legislate for the good of the American people. So that's why electing Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz as vice president will safeguard the rights, health, and well-being of all women, including veterans such as myself, service members, and our families. Rights that we all raised our hand and took an oath to defend for all Americans, regardless of their affinities or backgrounds. So let's tap into this momentum from the DNC because our mission continues. We have 71 days left. Sign up at the link shared in the chat to find something you can do to contribute to educating folks in your families, your communities, and your church about what is on the line. And I'll leave you with the Air Force motto: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vidya. Really appreciate you being here and speaking from the heart. Again, everyone, thanks so much for sticking with us. Just a few more really important folks that I want you to hear from tonight. Next up, we have another veteran named Sam Van Kopp, who is with Republican Veterans Against Trump. Sam.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder, this is a bipartisan effort, the opposition to Trump. I'm another West Point grad. We're a lot of us on the call tonight. Also, once every third airborne, deployed to Eastern Afghanistan, and formed this group because I am not alone in the folks who are dissatisfied as Republicans with Trump and believe him to be a terrible thing for our party and our country. And so we formed Republican Veterans Against Trump to do that messaging. So our group specifically is aiming to talk to partisan Republicans, individuals who may have doubts about Trump, who may dislike Trump actively, but because of their community affiliation or for whatever reason, they may be suspicious or reluctant to engage in messages that are anti-Trump, but are coming from the left or from the center. So we want to reach these folks from inside the tribe. And the way we do that is we ask our members to draft statements opposing to Trump. We put those on our website and we advertise them on social media, the best of the lot. And our interest here is to encourage these folks who are often in very pro-Trump environments, whether that's their family, their church, their town, to stand up and speak their mind, stand by their beliefs, and be vocal in their opposition to Trump so that we can try to decrease the number of folks who will vote for him this election cycle. Many of our messages that we've posted to our sites explicitly endorse Harris. We're realistic, though. Not everyone will get there. We think that so long as they're opposing Trump, that's a win, especially from the Republican side of the House, to take our party back and to protect the country. For all the reasons that people have talked about tonight, the threat from Trump cannot be sustained or listened to. So we have two asks for the people on this call. The first is, if you know any Republican veterans, we ask that you reach out to them and encourage them to add their voice to our effort. We'd love to keep the momentum going, and the best ambassadors for this message are friends and families from within their community talking to people they know. So the local effort is where we have our advantage. The second ask is, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your status as a veteran or not, you can help us raise our profile by visiting our website, increasing that traffic, or by following our Facebook page or our Twitter page or our posts. This makes it easier for folks to find us in the search engines. So if a Republican somewhere is disliking Trump and they want to be part of a community that echoes that message, they have a better chance of finding us on Google or on Facebook, the more our posts and messages are followed. And we think that's important because this election looks like it may come down to independents and disaffected Republicans. And we'd like to definitely be part of that effort. So I know we're over time. I'll leave my comments there. I'll also post in the chat our web address, our Twitter and our Facebook, and love to answer any questions any folks have. Thank you very much.
Looks like I'm up again. So our next speaker is also someone else who doesn't really need much introduction to most of this group. I've known this individual for many, many years, so much to the point to where his West Point classmates were instructors and TAC officers back when I was a junior and senior at West Point. So when we first met, let's say 10 some years ago, it's almost like I already knew him anyway. He's just a little grayer, a little slower. But it's all good. Fred Wellman, as you all know, is a loud advocate, activist in this space. He has a very, very popular blog that I don't know, I can't recall the name of it, and I should because I was on it last week or 2 weeks ago. But he's one of those people who can be loud for us when sometimes we can't be. And so I definitely appreciate the efforts that him and his team put forth. So Fred, you talk better than I, so take it away.
Hey, before you kick over, Fred, I think the audience should be aware, and you are due congratulations. My good friend Fred got engaged just over a week ago, right before the DNC. So congratulations,
Yes.
Fred.
Thank you. Yes. That week wasn't enough crazy as it was, so I decided to do that and then go to the DNC. Forgive my voice. I have COVID, as some of us did who went to DNC. Wow, where do you start? I'm at the end of the 2 hours. Thanks, Naveed, for putting me at the end. I really appreciate that. Especially following Travis Akers, who stole all my notes, and I appreciate that too. I've been talking about a few things. For those who know my background, I'm an Army veteran, 22 years, 3 times in Iraq, plus Desert Storm. Since then, I've been involved in veterans advocacy. I ran a thing called the Lincoln Project. You may have heard about that last cycle. That was super fun. And now I have my show, On Democracy, on the Midas Touch Network and elsewhere. Also work with Vote Vets. One thing I've been talking about a lot, and you guys can appreciate if you're on the show on here still and have spent any time in the military, the idea of having a command sergeant major for the commander in chief. It's been bouncing in my head since the day Tim Walz was named. The idea that we could actually have someone in the White House who's been that person, right? The person who takes care of the troops, the person who makes sure everything's working the way it's supposed to behind the scenes. And more importantly for me, for those of you I told a story recently about my first sergeant who helped me when I had a crisis when my first wife passed away. Having a senior NCO to help that commander and to provide backup to that commander, to the commander in chief, our first woman president, that's going to be such a unique relationship. And it's hard to forget that. I love for us as veterans and members of the military community to be the ones that can interpret that for our civilian friends and tell them how important that is. Secondly, a lot of people are complaining that this campaign is it's all about vibes, right? Have you seen that criticism? It's the vibes campaign, right? Well, when I was in the military, I was an officer, as you guys can tell, and I developed a skill set for going into a tent, a talk, a barracks, anywhere, sitting around a crew. I mean, my God, sleeping inside a Black Hawk during a sandstorm in Iraq. I've been there a lot with our soldiers. And the one thing you learn is a sense for the morale of the organization, right? I think anybody who served in the military for any amount of time, you get a sort of a sixth sense for understanding what is going on in the unit. And I was an XO in OIF1. I've been every staff officer you can imagine, plus a company commander a couple, 3 times. And that morale, everybody knows a unit with high morale does better. A unit with high morale succeeds in combat. A unit with high morale goes in the offensive easier. So when people are saying it's a vibes campaign, no, we have high morale now. Ever since the Kamala Harris took over, ever since Tim Walz joined the campaign, the morale and the motivation for this campaign has gone through the roof. And that is good morale. And good morale leads to victory. So there's something they say in political, because I also do political campaign work. Happy campaigns win. So dismiss these people, dismiss the traditional Democratic hand wringing. We all know it. If anybody's been involved in Democratic politics, we're the masters of hand wringing, aren't we? We're like, oh my God, the sky's going to fall. This is the, sure, we're winning right now, but my God, 2016. Do you remember 2016? We thought you were winning then too. Look, stop that. Stop that. It's okay to feel momentum. It's okay to feel victory. It's okay to feel good morale because God damn it, we earned it. Right? We're in this fight for the right reasons. We've got the right team in place. We've got the right people fighting. America's waking up to the poison and the hatred and the vitriol that represents the MAGA movement, not just Donald Trump. Y'all, I live in Missouri. We had 3 different statewide candidates last cycle decide that flamethrowers were good for their campaign ads, okay? Guns weren't enough anymore. No, they got effing flamethrowers now, okay? The ridiculousness, the stupidity of it. America's waking up saying, oh my God, these people are freaking normal. Tim Walz is a normal dude. Kamala is a normal lady. She likes to cook, okay? and they're ready for it. So look, don't wring your hands. We're winning. The wind's at our backs. My friend Simon Rosenberg calls it hopium. I did a hopium bender last week, and that's why I got sick. Probably I was injecting hopium directly into my veins for a week in Chicago, and you should too. Okay, so don't let anybody bring you back. I was going to talk a little bit about remembering what it was like under Trump. F that guy. It was terrible. He screwed the VA. We went through VA secretaries like crazy. It was like the skullduggery crazy shit. Don't forget the Mar-a-Lago 3. He let 3 of his buddies from a shitty golf club be unofficial advisors to the sector. The sector of the United States Veterans Affairs had to report to 3 assholes from Mar-a-Lago. Okay? We will forget that stuff. Never go back. We're going forward. What we've seen in 3.5 years from the Biden administration has been spectacular. I keep this open on my phone. The PACT Act alone, 1 million plus veterans and over 100,000 or 10,000 survivors have received new toxic exposure related disability benefits. 1.5 million PACT Act claims have been processed by the VA. And, a lot of our congressman friends here helped pass that bill. But everybody, again, hand-wringing, as soon as it was passed, the story then was, oh, they'll never be able to implement it. Well, it's going to be a disaster of implementation. Nope. Now they passed this bill, but Secretary McDonough and his staff, an incredible group of people, implemented a bill in spectacular fashion. 5.7 million veterans have received free screenings for toxic exposures. $774 million in benefits have been delivered to veterans with cancer. 700,000 plus veterans have been newly enrolled in VA healthcare. Those numbers are spectacular. So when your friends out there tell you Dems don't help veterans, you got to go, you know what? You're full of shit. Okay. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. As my friend Taryn was on my show last week. By the way, watch the show last week with Taryn because he had some education. It's on Democracy Pod. And we talked about how look where people vote for money. And Dems have consistently put their money where their mouths are for veterans. Don't forget, the first time the PACT Act went up, the Republicans killed it and high-fived in the well of the Senate for killing a bill to help all of us. So my ask of you, put on your T-shirts, put on the Harris for Veterans T-shirts, get out in your community, be loud, be bold, be honest, go at it. Talk to your friends. They look to us for guidance. Don't be shy. Man, I live in Missouri, y'all. It's a miracle I haven't gotten shot. Okay. I've been doxxed. I had a stalker outside my house. Who cares? We're winning. We got the right people on the team. They're looking to us for verification. They're looking for us to be those say, like, look, this is where we're at, and we can change the future of this country. And we got 71 days to do it. 71 days in a wake up. Okay. I remember, God, you guys, how many people are deployed on here? My God, you were 71 days in a deployment. Holy shit, right? I mean, you're done. You're so short, you got to reach up to tie your boots, right? Okay, we are so short right now. We're as good as home. So let's take it home. Let's stay fired up. Don't let the hand-wringing or the polls or the idiot traditional people who want to bring us down get in your head. Good units win. Units with high morale win. Units that are proud to be part of that unit win. And that's who we are right now, y'all. So great speakers, great to have you guys here. But that's my pitch to you is we are on the run. We're on the offensive. Ignore their silliness. Ignore their little gripes, the Tim Walz stuff. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know it's not stolen valor. It's bullshit. Ignore that. Go forward. Always, always, always forward. And that's all I've got. Thanks for letting me be part of this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. And Naveed popped up, but he keeps having me want to introduce people. So pop away, Naveed. Pop away. Our next speaker is also another person that needed an introduction. He probably is the first person on television who identified soon-to-be President Trump as an existential threat to our nation, and has been very, very, very loud about it. Has relatively recently returned from Ukraine and supporting our allies over there. Take it away there, Malcolm.
Hey, I'm really glad to be here. And I got to tell you, it's really something being on air. We're not on air, but it was certainly in the Zoom with the former Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mabus. You guys may not know it, but he's actually sort of a minor movie star. When there was a TV show called The Last Ship, which was about a U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke-class destroyer during a global pandemic that killed most of the world. Secretary Mabus gave full cooperation with this TV show. And in fact, I worked at Warner Brothers and I met the producers of the show, The Last Ship, because anyone who's from the U.S. Navy loves The Last Ship, right? That is just, it's a very realistic, hyper-realistic vessel. In fact, I have several artifacts from the ship. But Secretary Mabus was in one of the episodes where he played the Secretary of Defense giving a video recording to the USS Nathan James as the United States dies. And what I found surprising is hearing from him tonight. I'm sure, you know, he really cooperated with that show. I saw the shadow box that he gave to the producers from his father's time in service. It's that he played the role of someone who was watching the death of America. And that really shocked me when I saw it on television, that an actual, you know, former Secretary of the Navy was playing that role. I'm just hoping right now that we are not entering the reality of that show, that the United States will in some way, shape, or form come apart. As you know, I've written 4 books on the Trump administration, their coordination, or not coordination, but certainly the links that they've had to foreign powers, and what, you know, the penchant for Donald Trump to love dictators. But my last book was called They Want to Kill Americans, and it was about the people who were veterans and law or active duty military or law enforcement and others who were more loyal to Donald Trump than their oath to the Constitution. So unlike everybody else, I'm all rah-rah. I was in Chicago last week with, you know, and met great people at Vote Vets and met all sorts of wonderful people. But I want to give you some practical things that you can take away and apply right now. A few years ago, when John Kerry, about 20 years ago, when Senator John Kerry was running for president, the Republicans attacked him using people from his own community, which was the high-speed small craft riverine warfare craft in Vietnam. And they were called swift boat sailors. And the Republicans, by a guy named La Savita, right, who is now Donald Trump's campaign manager, came up with this strategy to use military veterans to call Senator Kerry a liar, stolen valor, that he had 2 fake Purple Hearts, that he had a fake Bronze Star, a fake Silver Star, and that he was just a liar. And they attacked him so relentlessly that right now the English Dictionary definition of swift boat, which is the name of their community, means character assassination. They so degraded themselves that their whole military service in Vietnam has now been reduced down to veterans that attack and character assassinate other veterans. And that's how they will be seen forever when they go to, to reunions and other organizational functions like that, as they die away, these Vietnam era veterans. They so disgrace themselves that their name equals disgrace. So what I want to talk to you today about really quickly is veteran versus veteran warfare. I have it every day. You guys know I was on MSNBC for 7 years, and there is not a minute from the time that I testified before Congress on the inefficiency of waterboarding to this moment, to this morning, that somebody has not called me stolen valor, a liar, wasn't in the military, lied about everything I did in the military, or blah, 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 right? The same stuff that our candidate for Vice President Tim Walz is going through, who has 4 more years of military service than I have and reached 1 rank higher than I did, being the SMAJ, right? So I found it fascinating that the Republicans would bring out Chris LaCivita, Trump's campaign manager, would reach back to 2004, 20 years ago, and bring out swift boat veterans. Tactic again. And they got a veteran who, if you've ever seen that photograph of where, of a battalion, and it has where Tim Walz would be standing in that echelon of 4 people at the front, the command team, and way back in the back under one of the companies in the rear would be where J.D. Vance would have stood. That's not important. What's important here is that we comport ourselves in such a way that we, as veterans who support Harris-Walz, we maintain our honor while pushing back against these attacks on Tim Walz. And I think Tim Walz did it the right way, which is to come out and say, I honor your service, I honor my service. This is the record from the Minnesota National Guard. It is what it is, and thank you for your service. Now, we, on the veteran side, we are the people who are going to actually have to do combat with this on the street level scale, because I get it day, night, left, right, up, down. Civilians ask me, did Tim Walz lie about it? And the thing that I always answer is this, and I want to give you these, how can I put it, counter narratives that you can bring out and use yourself. The first thing is, you have to remind people that Tim Walz sacrificed his family, his interactions with his schools, even though, he was National Guardsman. National Guardsmen are essentially active duty people these days, right? And National Guard units went all over the world. To be in the National Guard for 24 years, you sacrificed a lot, and you should honor his sacrifice just as you honor the 4 years that J.D. Vance put into the Marine Corps, right? The second thing that you should do is you should always, if it's a civilian, recalibrate them. Make sure that they know what the facts really are. Say, look, if you worked at, what is your job? Your job is, auto mechanic. Who are you going to listen to? An auto mechanic that served in the shop for 24 years, or a guy who worked in there doing the paperwork for 4 years? They both serve equally and honorably. And you notice I keep coming up with this word, honorable. I want us to embody that word in our responses. I don't want us to be, completely above the fray. I just don't want us to dishonor ourselves when engaging with the civilian world or engaging with other veterans, right? That has already been shot. The Republicans have decided dishonor is how they will go about dealing with veterans, right? We can always, if they're civilians, remind them Donald Trump ain't the greatest fan of being veterans. He hugs the flag, but he disparages it. He disparages the very people that wear the uniform. And this is where I'm going to get into my next part really quickly. When I wrote my book on counter-ideology warfare against Al-Qaeda and ISIS, One of the things that we felt that worked the best was not direct attacks, waterboarding, and torturing people. No, that stuff doesn't work. We found by introducing what we called the weapon of doubt. You want to give them a data point that is true, clear fact that makes them go home and wonder if they are the baddies, if they have got this story wrong. They will always see their peers who will do it. You want to create doubt back here. And by doing that, you make them question what they're doing. And the first thing you need people to question is, veterans should not be attacking other veterans. It's dishonorable. And I stand with Walz. He served honorably. I stand with J.D. Vance. He served honorably. And that's the story. Don't do this to veterans. Don't allow it to be done to veterans. And then they go, yeah, but J.D. Vance, blah, 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 Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay, well, I'm not going to get into that. But what I will say is this. Donald Trump did not serve. No one in his family served. He thinks the Medal of Honor is equal to a Lifetime Achievement Award for a woman that gave him $150 million. Do you respect the Medal of Honor? Make them doubt the position they've just established. Make them respond to you in such a way as that they respect you, they respect the Medal of Honor, they respect those who deserve it. And one of the things that I always use is I use the example of John F. Kennedy. Because everyone loves John F. Kennedy, right? John F. Kennedy in World War II had a PT boat, which was essentially a swift boat, very early version of swift boats. And in one of the battles off the Pacific Islands in the South, he was run over. Literally, his ship, PT-109, was run over by a Japanese destroyer. Everyone was thrown into the water. 2 men died. John F. Kennedy took one of those men who was severely wounded, burned all over his body, took his life vest, without a life vest, put it in his teeth, and swam with him for 2 miles. When they had to move to another island, he swam with him again in the Pacific with his life vest in his teeth. John F. Kennedy didn't even get a combat award. He got the Navy Marine Corps Medal, which is almost a peacetime life-saving medal. He could have gotten the Navy Cross, right? But was John F. Kennedy's service dishonorable because he didn't get combat awards, or he's been considered a pogue or whatever people think these days when they do veteran versus veteran warfare? Don't engage, make them doubt and question what they're doing. Then say, thank you. I served. Thank you for my service, whatever you want to say. I never say thank you for your service. When people say thank you for the service, this is what I say. Thank my wife and my ma. My ma had seven Nances in the military at one time, including her husband, right? So with that, thank you guys for helping out here, and love you all. We're going to win this fight, and veterans are going to lead the way.
Thanks very much, Malcolm. Really appreciate you getting everybody fired up here at the end. And want to bring everybody in together for this last part and just say thank you all for being here this evening. If you are everyone, this is the team behind the scenes running things, some of our speakers who have stuck with us this whole evening. Really appreciate you all for being here, for joining us. There have been a number of resources we've thrown in the chat. We will also send an email out after this with more information for everybody who joined, so you can get involved in every which way you can. Really appreciate you all. Really appreciate all of our panelists and speakers who joined us this evening from all the different groups. You all are the reason I'm in this fight, because you guys make it really it's a powerful movement because of all the people in it. So thank you all. Really appreciate you. Have a great night, everybody. Hopefully somebody gets a screenshot of all the speakers before everyone goes away. I don't know, Jacob, if you did that. We got one too. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.